Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. You're going to learn a lot about lead service line replacement, lead compliance. It's complicated, it's expensive, it's aggravating sometimes, and all of these webinars, all of these talks are designed to help you through that. You have the benefit of very knowledgeable members of the Jersey Water Works Lead Implementation Committee here to share their hard-earned knowledge with you. So I hope that you are able to take away something. Just as a matter of intro, my name is Noemi de la Puente. I manage the lead service line replacement program at Trenton Water Works. I am also a member of the Jersey Water Works Lead Implementation Committee. I've learned a lot from them, and I hope you do too. One little point of housekeeping is put your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat. Because the Q&A is what the panelists will be skimming once they're done with their presentation, and they'll be able to answer your questions that way. If you put the question in the chat, it will be lost. And without further ado, let's get started on this learning journey.
Thank you, Noemi. I just have a few housekeeping things on the behalf of New Jersey Water. First, I'd like to thank Deandrah Cameron for reaching out to us to have us proctor again this year. We're happy to be here. This will be a good class. Excited to learn more about lead. I did just want to touch base on the accreditation and the certification for your credits. So in order to receive credits, if you're looking for them, you're going to have to attend for the full length of the webinar today. There's also going to be 4 codes, and you have to write down all 4 of them. Throughout the presentation, we'll announce the codes. It'll come up as a poll, and you could just reply to the poll. You could click. It's going to come up two answers. It's going to be NJWA and then the code number. Write down both NJWA dash the code, and you could click on either one of them. It doesn't actually matter. But yeah, just make sure you get those codes because we're going to use those codes to verify your attendance here today. At the end, we'll also collect the attendance report that Zoom collects the data in the background to see who's been in attendance the full length. And you'll need both of those in order to receive credit. After the webinar is over, I'm going to send you all who are looking for credit an Adobe sheet for you to fill out. And it's kind of similar to our normal classes. You're going to fill out your name and everything and your license numbers. Once we receive them, we're going to verify the codes because you'll also put the codes on that sheet. Once we verify everything, we'll sign them and send them back. You'll get a copy and they'll get submitted as per usual. If anybody has any questions about that, you could feel free to email me directly and I'll answer them. And with that being said, thanks everyone, all the speakers, and I'm going to give the mic back over.
Okay, so first up we have federal lead and copper rule revision improvements, LCRR/I requirements. Already you can see from the name that it's a complex set of regulations. And we have Kristin Epstein from CDM Smith to teach us about that.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Noemi, for the introduction, and thank you, Jersey Water Works, for hosting this, and to Chelsea, Alexandra, and Lonnie for being my co-presenters, and then Tom, Jackie, Deandrah, Sandy, and everybody who's been working behind the scenes to make this happen. I really appreciate that. I think this is like as Noemi said, a very complicated topic. So it's a lot of work even to just produce it, but also to discuss it. So thank you for that. And I will share my screen now. Oh, goodness. Sorry, pausing for my slow computer. Okay, here we go. I hope everyone can see my screen okay. So yes, I'm talking about the federal LCRI, which is the lead and copper rule improvements, and how they affect New Jersey water systems. So first I want to say Happy Lunar New Year. That's tomorrow to everyone on the call. And I just thought it was a nice fortuitous thought that this is the year of the wood snake. And the wood snake is thought to embody qualities such as charm, intelligence, and creativity, which I think that we're going to need a lot of this year with managing lead service line replacements and all the regulations that are in a state of flux at the moment. So I just thought that was a nice characteristic to carry into 2025. So I'm going to talk about the changing lead and copper regulations applicable to New Jersey, changes that have already happened that are applicable to New Jersey right now, changes that will be applicable in 2027, which is the implementation date or the effective date of the LCRI, and then, of course, the recent federal uncertainty with pretty much everything, but we're going to focus on the LCRI uncertainty. So what's happening in New Jersey? Back in summer and fall of 2021, New Jersey legislators passed legislation, not a regulation, not a rule, but legislation that governed or became the lead and copper rule, what we're calling the lead and copper rule, which requires 10% replacements. And you guys have been working under that since 2021 and turning in your inventory and starting replacements in 2022. So then just after that, the EPA, the federal EPA, came out and published the federal lead and copper rule revisions with a compliance date of 2024. And then just prior to that effective date, they published the lead and copper rule improvements. So it's been very complicated 3 years at the New Jersey level and the federal level, navigating the changing regulations and trying to prepare for regulations that were continuously shifting. But they did finalize the LCRI in October of 2024. And then the effective compliance date of it is November 1st, 2027. So what happened with the federal LCRR and the LCRI? So the LCRR, as written, had new requirements in all these different categories you see at the top of the screen. And we were gearing up to comply with all those. But then when the EPA published the draft LCRI and then some guidance that came after that, they said, whoa, we're going to issue the LCRI. So everything's going to get delayed by 3 years to match up with the LCRI date, but you still need to turn in the federal LCRR inventory, which we're now naming the initial inventory, and you still need to do your notifications related to that. And if you have a 90th percentile action level exceedance, you need to issue a tier 1 style public notice. So those are really basically the only things that stuck from the LCRR to the LCRI. But in New Jersey, we were already doing things that were more advanced than the LCRR. So we were already submitting inventories every year and submitting annual letters. We are completing replacements by 2031, so 10% per year. We're doing investigating materials so that we can do those replacements. Already the LCR in New Jersey banned partial replacements, except in specific circumstances. Partials are something that have been routine practice for water systems for a very long time. But what they are is if you replace the utility side is lead, and the customer side is still lead, but you only replace 1/2 of it, that's considered a partial. The definition of a partial is not the work that was done, it's what remains in the ground. If lead or galvanized, in the case of New Jersey, stays in the ground after you've done a replacement, that's considered a partial. So for New Jersey utilities, you should be doing both at the same time. Oh, or follow very specific instructions for emergencies when you have to do a utility side replacement in an emergency situation. Then you need to follow up and try to get the customer done ASAP. And they also defined when you're reaching out to customers to try to get their side done, what is the definition of being non-responsive so that you can be done with your obligation to offer to do this replacement for the customer. So what did the LCRR, the remaining parts of the LCRR, do for New Jersey water systems? The inventory that was due federally in October 16th, 2024, was to include all service lines. In New Jersey, you just included domestic service lines on your previous versions of the inventory. So the federal inventory includes all service lines, which include irrigation and fire lines, not hydrants. If a lateral goes directly to a hydrant, it doesn't need to be included. But if it's a line coming into a building that's used for fire purposes, that needs to be included. So whether you did that for your July submittal in New Jersey or you redid it for October to meet the federal deadline, it should have included all of your service lines. Also, the annual notification letters in New Jersey in the past went to just lead and known lead and known galvanized service lines. The federal rule said also to include unknowns in that letter. It could be, the federal government does not require a certified letter, so it can just be a normal letter. But that was due to be sent out by November 15th, 2024. And then continue with annual notifications that include all three of those categories, the lead, the galvanized, and the unknowns. And in New Jersey, I believe the regulators are saying that they want you to try to do all of those in August so that they're all on the same schedule. That was the schedule before for the lead and galv letters. So I think they're asking you to do them all at once. But please check with the guidance and your regulators on that to make sure that August is the new deadline for the unknowns as well. As I mentioned, new public notice requirements for New Jersey, that came into effect. They came in effect at the federal level, which affects New Jersey. If you have an action level exceedance, your 90th percentile exceeds 15 ppb, then you need to do a tier 1 notice. I actually consider this a downgrade because in the past, it was a tier 2 notice. A tier 2 notice is where you send an individual letter to every single person in your system, saying that you had a violation of a water quality parameter. When I was working with Trenton Water Works, we did a couple of those, those tier 2 notices, and it goes to every single customer, whether they have a lead or galvanized service line or not. A tier 1 notice, which is now the requirement, is the same as a boil water advisory. It's over very quickly. Yes, you have to act very quickly. You have to make sure you have the right language, but it's not a letter to every customer. It's a public notification, either announcement on the radio, using your reverse 911. If you have sensitive customers, maybe dropping off individual notices for sensitive customers, but it's not a direct notification to every customer. It's more of a large-scale broadcast. So that's something to keep in mind if coming up at the end of your next compliance round, you exceed the action level. So what's coming with the LCRI? What's coming in 2027 that affects New Jersey? I'll tell you that the federal government, the EPA, incorporated a lot of the New Jersey regulation into the LCRI, which was very interesting that happened. They made some changes and they added a little bit more, but a lot of the New Jersey regulation basically became part of the LCRI. So first, talking about replacements and your inventory. You already do a replacement plan in New Jersey. So the LCRI has some minor tweaks to the content of that replacement plan. I don't think that's a very big deal for us. They also did the no partial replacement rules. There's slightly different language about when it's allowed, when it's not allowed, but it's essentially the same. One thing they did add, which will be applicable to New Jersey, is post-replacement actions. Right now, you're doing replacements, And I don't believe there's any requirements for a particular action after a replacement. The LCRI specifies that you need to give, after replacement, you have to give public health information, what are the risks of lead exposure, flushing instructions for the homeowner or the customer, give a filter with 6 months of replacement cartridges, and then offer that customer a water sample between 3 and 6 months after the replacement. Now, this is something that's new. This validation step is new for the LCRI. And this one, I'll tell you, it's complicated. The EPA put out a fact sheet that explains it a little better. I still think there's more work to be done to explain or to think of the scenarios that might apply in this validation step. So hopefully the EPA will be issuing some more guidance, or maybe the state agencies will be issuing more guidance on the validation step. But essentially what it is if you have already, or in the future, declare a service line as non-lead, you have to decide what was your reason for declaring it non-lead. If you physically inspected that part of the service line, you put eyeballs on that pipe, that's a physical inspection, and you're done. If you have a year built or an installation date for the service line and it's post the lead ban, you're done. Every other reason goes into this validation pool. That includes tap card records or older work order records. It includes predictive modeling. I think that's an obvious one. It includes if you use statistical approach to determining non-lead, and any other method, including the emerging methods, go into this pool. And there is some guidance in the fact sheet about how many then further investigations you need to do. But for argument's sake, we'll say it's roughly 400. In most cases, it's going to be give or take around 400 that you need to do to get a statistical, an amount that gives you statistical 95% confidence in your results. So that's what that table is based on. But so what you do is you put all those non-leads in a pool, and then you randomly pull out 400 sites. Then you go and you pothole or physically inspect the material on both sides of the service line at those 400 sites. Now, this is where it gets hairy. They all need to come back non-lead. They all need to be found to be non-lead for you to validate the method of determining non-lead. And that's where the guidance ends. Now, here's the question. What if 1 or 2 of them come back as lead or galv? There is no guidance on that. 1 or 2 is less than 0.5%. When you're using predictive modeling, you're only going to have, at best, a 99% accuracy. That's the gold standard, is 99% accuracy. 99% accuracy is still 1 out of 100 could be lead. So that's 1%. So how do you rectify that is one of the questions that we have for the EPA. My company, CDM Smith, is planning to write a white paper with our thoughts about how we could apply this validation step. So be on the lookout for that. The EPA and the state agencies are looking at published articles as they're kind of developing their own guidances. So we're hoping that, we put some practical thoughts behind what does this validation step actually mean. I should also say this validation step in the LCRI needs to be done by 2034. So 2034 is 3 years after New Jersey water systems are supposed to be done with all their replacements. So we're supposed to be done by 2031. So I don't recommend running out and doing your validation step now, because we need more guidance on what the results mean. But I think maybe once there is some guidance that maybe you want to try to do that during the last year, during 2031, so that you can kind of button everything up by the end of 2031. That's just my opinion, that might be a good time to do it. but more to come on that validation step. One thing that is nice about the validation step is it gives state agencies more comfort with approving emerging methods, because they can know that they're going to be validated later down the road. So it gives them an obvious way that they can say, well, it's going to be validated, so therefore we can trust those results. So it does help in that sense, but it also makes things a little bit more complicated on the water system side, trying to comply with that. All right, I'm going to pause now for your first code of the morning.
Okay, everybody, we're sending in the first code. Make sure you write this number down.
Okay, I'm going to move on to my next slide. Oh, I'm not. So Jackie, I actually don't remember what this slide says. If you could move the verification code. All right, it says disturbances. So the LCRI has some new requirements that are applicable across the country, as well as New Jersey, regarding disturbance actions, what is a disturbance, and what you need to do after a disturbance. So there's 3 types of disturbances. I already talked about replacements, where if you're doing any type of replacement, you need to give out educational materials, the flushing instructions, the pitcher filter, and then offer a water sample 3 to 6 months later. But in addition to that, there are these 2 new categories of what are called disturbances. There's minor and major disturbances. So I'll start with major. A major disturbance is any time you cut the service line, cut or disconnect from the service line. So if you're doing a meter replacement, that is disconnecting from the service line. If you're doing a curb stop replacement, if you're doing a corp stop replacement, or I can't say a partial replacement of the service line because that falls under the lead service line replacement category, but anything that cuts the service line, you still need to give the lead educational materials, the flushing instructions to the homeowner or the customer, and a pitcher filter. So that's something that is new, especially if you're out there doing a mass meter replacement project. Even if you're just doing one-off meter replacements, you got to have that part of your procedure. It's going to become effective. The compliance date is November 1st, 2027. For a minor disturbance, this is the one that's even harder, I think, is a test pit. If you do a pothole to inspect your service line, or you use a backhoe to inspect your service line, the idea is that you could vibrate that service line a little bit and knock off some of the lead scale. If you have a depressurization event, which could include just shutting somebody's water off for non-payment, or change of ownership, you shut off their water for a little bit of time. It could include a main break where the service lines along that section of the main are depressurized. Those are all considered minor disturbances. And then you need to give the the educational material about the health of lead, lead risks, and your flushing instructions to all of the customers that are affected by that loss of pressure or that vibration event, from the test pit. You only need to do this with your known leads, your known galves, and most importantly, your unknowns. So if you have an unknown on the customer side, your utility side, is non-lead, you're all good, and you're doing work out at the main where you're, disconnecting and reconnecting at the corp stop, doing a new tap, whatever you're doing. If you don't also verify the customer side is non-lead during that event, you need to give them the, the educational materials and the pitcher filter. So thinking about how you can put those new activities into your standard practices, both with your own staff and with your contractors. Don't forget about your contractors. Every contractor that's working on service lines or mains should be equipped to do this kind of activity and know when to do it and how to record that they did it so that you can track it. I do highly recommend that you start that before November 2027 because it takes a while for new practices to become routine. It's going to take a while for you to figure out how you're going to procure your pitcher filters and get them out there to the customer. They are supposed to be delivered prior to returning to service. So you can't say, oh, we'll deliver it the next day. It has to be at the time that the work was conducted. So just, you need time to get those procedures in place, the procurement in place, and the practice of getting that going so that you can reliably be doing that before it becomes a compliance issue. Compliance sampling. So if there's any water quality managers in the webinar, this is something particularly for you. New compliance sampling at the federal level affects what's happening in New Jersey. First of all, if you have a known lead or galvanized, you will return to standard monitoring, regardless of what your water quality has been up until now. So that means every 6 months, you're taking your water samples. If you're a little bit of a larger system, that's a full 100, maybe even 200 water samples that you need to take, but it's the full standard schedule that you need to be back on. If you have no known lead or galv in your system, you can apply for a waiver to stay at reduced monitoring. So the state, New Jersey, should be coming out in the next 3 years with a mechanism to fill out a form to be part of the waiver or some way. So be looking for that. Also, if you then continue to have low results in your water, lead results in your water, after about 2 years, you can return to reduced monitoring. But prepare for that. It's going to be, in many cases, 6 times as many samples or more than you normally do if you're on reduced monitoring right now. Also, the tiers for your sampling pool are going to be quite different. Right now, if you see the arrows at the bottom of the screen, if your tier 1 samples can come from lead service lines and copper with lead solder. Ideally, at a 50-50 ratio, you may not have as much lead as copper with lead solder, so you may have entirely copper with lead solder in your system, but that's your current pool of tier 1 sites that you can take from. That's going to change. Now you have to take from the highest tier possible until you run out of sites, and then you move down. So all of your copper with lead solder sites, if you have lead in your system, will be replaced with lead service line locations. So you have to go up to all lead. And then if you can't get the lead, you go down, or you don't have the lead, you go down. So that's going to be a major change to your sampling pool for many of you. Also, the method changes, but this is only for lead service lines or what the EPA defines as GRR, or galvanized requiring replacement. Actually, I take that back. It is just for lead service lines. So just lead service lines, you need to take a 1st liter sample and a 5th liter sample. Right now, you're only doing 1st liter. Same stagnation period is what you're used to, but it's 1st and 5th liter. And then you take the 1st and the 5th, you analyze both, whichever one has the highest result. That's what goes to the state to be part of your 90th percentile calculation. Now, that's going to be a big effect for some of you, especially if you do have lead service lines. This is real results from some sequential sampling that was done at a home in New Jersey that had a lead service line. So we did sequential sampling, and you can see we paired it with, we figured out the volume of water that matched with the distance from the faucet where we were taking the sample. And you can see by the time we got out to that 5th liter, we were taking samples from outside the home that were within the service line area. So if you have a lead service line out there, that water's been sitting stagnant in there for 6 hours at least, and is collecting all that dissolved lead coming off of the pipes. So you very well might get a higher result from your lead service line locations than you would in just your 1st liter sample. So now you have an increased level that you're going to be reporting for that 90th percentile calculation. Also, November 1st, 2027, the action level is going to drop. It's going to be, it's 15 now, it's going to go down to 10. So some of you that have been kind of at the 12 and 13 level, watch out. So with all these things compounding, you're going to go back to standard monitoring. So every 6 months you're collecting, you're going to be sampling. If you have lead, you're going to be sampling only from lead sites. You're going to be taking the highest of the 1st and 5th liter, lower action level. Oh boy. So that's something that we recommend that you look at now if you have lead service lines, that you start sampling from lead sites and you start collecting that 5th liter sample so you have an idea of where you are with that. If you have an action level exceedance, the rest of the country, that kicks them into mandatory replacements. New Jersey, we already have mandatory replacements. So the biggest impact of having an action level exceedance will be that you will be forced to optimize your corrosion control under a very prescribed method. The LCRI has a very specific method that they want you to do your corrosion control optimization. That may not be the best thing for your water system. So it really narrows what you're allowed to do. So I recommend, again, looking at it now, you don't want to go through that drama of having an action level exceedance in the first place, but then also it lets you evaluate your corrosion control on your terms, makes what makes sense for your utility. School and child care facility samplings. This is something that water systems have never done before in New Jersey. We have not been required to do school or child care facility sampling, but now you are. So not only do you do sampling, you need to provide health language to every school in your system, every school and child care facility. And then the requirement is to do every school and child care facility in your system within 5 years at a rate of 20% per year, 20% per category, per school, per child care facility. And then you are required to report those results both back to the school and to the local health department. The sites that are part of this sampling pool include all elementary schools, regardless of whether they're private or public or what have you. All elementary schools, and elementary school is defined as any school that includes 8th grade or below. So if you have a high school that's 8th through 12, that is part of your elementary school sampling pool. All licensed childcare facilities, and that word licensed is important because there are a lot of mom and pop style childcare facilities that are not licensed. Those do not need to be included in your pool. So it's just the licensed ones. And then secondary schools, which are your high schools, can request samples and you have to honor that request, but they don't have to be part of that 20% per year. When you're doing the school samples, at schools, they need to be at 5 locations, and that's it. 2 drinking water fountains, a kitchen faucet, a classroom faucet, or a faucet that is in the nurse's office or closest to the nurse's office. If you think about a high school or a large regional elementary school, 5 sites is kind of ridiculous. So even if you don't find lead at those 5 sites, that really doesn't make sure that the school is lead free, in my opinion. but that's what the rule says. And then childcare facilities, excuse me, which are typically smaller operations, 2 samples are required. Also, the method is different than what you're doing for compliance sampling. So you do a 0.25 liter sample, just a little bottle of water. And the reason that's kind of important is if you think about that volume of water, you're really only capturing the water that's in that drinking water fountain or immediately behind it. You are not capturing water that has been sitting in a service line. So that's a really important thing to know, is that the service line material is completely irrelevant to the school and childcare facility sampling effort. Even if this school has totally non-lead service lines, it doesn't matter. You still need to collect a water sample from it, or water samples from it. So those are 2 independent lists to maintain. Also, the stagnation time is a little different. It's between 8 and 18 hours, which if you think about a busy school that has after-school activities and rents it out to other groups, that might be tricky trying to find that specific window, 8 and 18 hours of stagnation before taking that 0.25 milliliter sample, or 0.25 liter sample. Now, a thing that the LCRI did, which is actually really nice, is they said, okay, any sampling that has happened since 2021, we can go back in time and count those towards the sampling pool. So if as long as it met the minimum requirements, those 5 samples at schools or 2 at the child cares, it can count. So anything that's been done in the past or anything going forward before the official start of that program in 2028 can be used. It can be from another program. It could be from a voluntary program or a state mandated program. It doesn't have to be the water system took the samples. And then what you do is you apply for a waiver. It's on a case-by-case basis. So for each elementary school, you would submit a waiver. And that's something that the state will need to come out with the paperwork that is needed to submit that waiver. So this is really good news for New Jersey, because in New Jersey, the Department of Ed already requires every public school to do lead sampling every 3 years. And that includes all your magnets and your charter schools. Those are public schools as well. So that should count for your waiver eligibility. Childcare facilities, if they're licensed, which again, you only have to sample from license, part of their license renewal is to do lead water sampling. So that's done every 3 years, those license renewals. So somewhere since 2021 up to 2027, you should hit probably at least 2 of those rounds of sampling. So that's really good news. So you can very likely you'll be able to get waivers for those categories. Now, the private schools, which are independent and parochial schools, are not governed by the Department of Ed, and therefore there is no requirement to do lead sampling. They may have done it for voluntary reasons, but it's not a requirement. So you really would have to check with each school to see if they have done it and if it meets the requirements. But I'm just going to assume that they probably haven't, and therefore you're probably not going to get waivers for your private schools. So that's really your focus, is the private schools in New Jersey. All right, now the big question, federal uncertainty. There's a lot happening at the federal level right now. You may have heard or you may not have heard. There is this Newt Gingrich era congressional act that went into place called the Congressional Review Act, which means Congress can look back 60 days, 60 legislative days, 60 congressional days, and by a simple majority vote, revoke anything that was passed by Congress in those last 60 days. So as of last Monday, Inauguration Day, 60 days ago was August 1st, 2024. So that means anything that was passed after August 1st, 2024 could, in theory, be repealed by just a simple majority vote, 51%. There was also AWWA issued a lawsuit. There's I think a senator or a congressperson that issued a complaint or a lawsuit as well. So this is something that is, in my opinion, up for possible possibly going to be repealed. So what does that mean if the LCRI is repealed? It means that the LCRR, which was passed 4 years ago, would become the rule, the LCRR. And
Kristin,
then,
excuse me, I
yes,
just wanted to give you the 5-minute mark.
thank you. Yes, okay. So the LCRR becomes the rule. Now in New Jersey, again, we're already following a lot of extra rules that the federal government doesn't happen. So it's less of an impact to New Jersey than it is to water systems in other states, but it does affect them a little bit. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time dwelling on these slides. If you want to ask me for these after the webinar, I'm happy to share them. But essentially, the LCRR still has some things that will affect New Jersey. One of the questions is what will be the compliance date if we go back to the LCRR? It was technically supposed to be effective October 2024. So we're hoping that if the LCRI is revoked, that they will also issue a delay of the LCRR compliance dates, because otherwise immediately everyone's out of compliance for the whole country. But there are still some things in there that will affect New Jersey water systems, such as post-replacement actions, giving out the pitcher filters, offering the water samples. The disturbances, those will impact New Jersey water systems. The public health language, that's slightly different in the LCRR. And then all of the compliance sampling things that all those changes, the new tiers, there's going to be an action level and a trigger level, which is very confusing, but that will be new for the LCRR. And then the school and childcare sampling, that is also in the LCRR. So that will be something that New Jersey will be impacted by. The LCRR did not have that mechanism for the waivers for past sampling events. So as I mentioned, public schools and childcares are already sampling for lead. That will not be applicable anymore. So then you'll have to convert to every school, every childcare, every private school will need to be sampled as well. So what do I recommend? I recommend 3 things that are a good idea, whether the LCRI is in place or it's the LCRR. I recommend that you start practicing and doing your post disturbance actions and your post replacement actions, figuring out how you're going to give out those pitcher filters and offering the water samples. I recommend taking your 5th liter samples at lead sites and seeing where you fall. Are you likely to have an action level exceedance at either 15 or 10? 10, if it's LCRR, still is applicable as a trigger level, which does kick off some corrosion control requirements. So I think looking at your 5th liter sample now to evaluate your risk is a good idea. And then at very least, you could still start outreach to private schools and start sampling because that category we know is going to be impacted. So, that I think that's something that you could start now and kind of use it in either scenario. So thank you. That's the end of my presentation. I've been told that I will be answering questions. If you put questions in the Q&A section, that I will be continuing to answer those questions if they haven't already been answered throughout the next couple of sessions. But I will pass it off to my colleague, Chelsea, for the next presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kristin. I'm gonna get my deck up here. Make sure I share with sound. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. Hopefully, I can energize you in terms of just being an advocate for your program, whether or not you are a comms person or interact with your customers on a daily basis. So my name is Chelsea Kulp. I'm with New Jersey American Water. I'm the Senior Manager of Government and External Affairs. And today I'm just going to tell a little bit about our story and kind of hopefully leave you with some tips and tricks that you can implement no matter really your size, but just take some of the pieces that we've delved into and see if you can implement it in your own. So lead service line replacements really aren't about the infrastructure. It's about trust, it's about communication, and really empowering your communities to take some type of action, especially now. So I want to set the stage. In the most recent J.D. Power study, which is a third party, you probably see this a lot on cars and different big brands that we see a lot of commercials. We look to it as an industry and a utility as best practices. Where can we improve? And their last recent study that they put out, it said proactive communication is the single most important step for water utilities can take to increase customer satisfaction. And overall, water utilities, overall, we all need to do a better job of communicating with our customers about the efforts that we're making every single day to keep their water supply safe and the steps that we're taking to shore up infrastructure. So lead service line replacement programs are really the perfect opportunity for all of us to educate our customers, empower them to take needed action, and to continue to build trust with them as their water providers. So today, as I mentioned, my goal is not just to give you information, but my goal is really to hopefully you leave energized, equipped with some tips, and ready to communicate, if you haven't already, about your program in ways that resonate and drive action and build confidence within the communities that you serve. Because at the end of the day, we're all communicators, even if you don't sit in a communications role. At New Jersey American Water, we've seen this firsthand, how effective communication and customer engagement can really make a difference. It's why we're really proud to be ranked #1 in customer satisfaction among large utilities in the Northeast and ranked most trusted, because this reinforces that when we prioritize clear, transparent communication and put our customers first, they recognize it and really appreciate it. So whether you're working with customers, your stakeholders, local leaders, or just other departments within your town or municipality, the way we really frame this conversation makes all the difference. So hopefully I will share some strategies and examples that we're utilizing, some communication techniques that really help them move the needle from awareness to engagement to action. So if you don't know who we are, I won't spend too much time on this, but we are the largest regulated water and wastewater service provider in the state of New Jersey. We have over 800 employees, and they serve about 2.9 million people across 190 communities in 18 counties. So you can kind of see here, 91% of that is residential. And in 2022, we did launch one of the largest communication campaigns to educate and empower our customers around our lead service line replacement program. And I showed the map here that we have about 32 PWS ideas, which I think is important to know as we kind of navigate the next few slides here. So really just setting the stage as to, the challenges that really resulted in the reason why we came out with this proactive and specialized education campaign. So as we all know, and I think was made apparent in the beginning, lead can just be a sensitive topic. It's now a kitchen table discussion that people are having and have been having. And for us at New Jersey American, we started with over 600,000 unknowns to start. So a really big number to start tackling. And as Kristin mentioned, we have to identify and replace all those lead and galvanized by 2031. We have 32 PWS IDs, and when we were developing our plan on how to prioritize and do this, we were told we had to look at each PWS ID as its own kind of area versus looking at it from a statewide approach, which really required us to look a little bit deeper into kind of how we were doing this, and had to be unique because, as we all know, if you live in New Jersey, if you're looking at the state, we are very vastly diverse. No matter where you are in New Jersey, we're all different, whether it's geographically, culturally, the languages that we speak. So we really had to be intentional with how we deliver this program and tailor it to really each community that we serve across the state. And so in response, it really wanted us to go proactively to educate them about this program, use this and view this as an opportunity to educate on a topic that could be difficult, and hopefully empower our customers to take action, because identifying it's not that hard if you know what you're looking for and the basic tests that you can do. So most of this you already know, but we looked at our methodology to make this our prioritization model as a regulated utility. Not only did we have to provide a plan, but we also had to provide, how we were going to develop and pay for that plan. So this was really important for us in the beginning to be able to utilize a way of equity when we're looking at how do we target certain areas and where do we start. So this is kind of the basis of how we came up with our plan. And I think it's important that it's something that we shared, especially with the communities that we served, so they understood the methodology behind what we were doing. And once we had this plan in place, that's when the communications really started to jump in. So the biggest thing I can say is really keep in mind accessibility when it comes to the communities that you serve. You want to make sure that you know them. So if you have a small footprint, a large footprint, knowing your customer base, languages that they speak, having the ability to have everything accessible digitally, but also printouts is really important. And one big thing that we really took in consideration, which sometimes gets overlooked, but our map, we were really intentional with the colors that we used on our map, because depending on the colors that you use online, people that are colorblind might not be able to truly distinguish between lead or non-lead on your map. So if you do have some type of interactive map, or you're using any type of color coding system, please keep ADA compliance in mind when you're launching something of that nature. But the way we utilized our website, and it's still up today, is we utilized a landing page that was well known to our customers, NewJerseyAMWater.com/leadfacts. And it's really a hub of information where they can find anything that they're looking for as it relates to our program. So that has been the basis of our program as we were kind of setting this up to really engage on a pretty massive scale. So we had our prioritization model in place. We did all the background work. So I know some of us have maybe been already doing this, or if you put, hopefully you all put in your initial inventory and you probably did some planning to get to that point. But it's really important and cost effective to do some of that desktop work and to do some of that prioritization or, the modeling, because that's really going to help you set yourself up to be more intentional of where you're communicating. So we've got that plan in place. We had contractors ready. And now what I like to call is the fun part that we got to really engage. And I still really enjoy this to today, but we met our customers where they're at. So you can kind of see here, we consider this kind of like a funneled approach. So we have an always on kind of unknown campaign across our entire footprint to really just educate people on the why and how of this program, why it's happening, why it's important to them, and how or what they can do to maybe take action. So whether that's them going to identify themselves, or maybe they're scheduling an appointment to have someone come out and support them on that initiative. The other really key component for us is our stakeholder education. So the trusted leaders within your community are really important program validators that can really help you move the needle, especially if you have a more diverse community, if you have language barriers, really identifying those leaders within the communities that you serve that can help educate your residents to trust this program and to validate the program. And then, of course, when we have boots on the ground, I'll talk a little bit about what does that mean, and kind of how do you make sure that a program like that, if you decide to go that tactic, how to make sure that it's effective and that you're spending the money that you are spending, whether it's with contractors or employee time, that it's well used and that it's targeted. So that's another thing that we kind of layered on. And the ultimate goal here, which is why it's at the bottom of the funnel, is to identify that lead or galvanize, get those agreements signed to get the replacement work done in a timely manner. So the important thing here to leave with is that the success of your program really lies in the sum of the strategies that you deploy. So a lot of what I talk about here, some might be relevant for you and some might not be, but making sure that you're looking at it holistically and figuring out where your customers are first, and then moving from there, I think, is the most important avenue. And everyone is going to be a little different. So in May of 2023, we actually launched our more in-depth targeted campaign. And this is something that's refined pretty regularly. But we looked at this as a 2-track approach because, as Kristin mentioned, at the time we were, working under the LCRR. Some of this is a little, some have been delayed, but we're still, even if it has been delayed, there's still that up in there Kristin mentioned. So we're kind of trekking forward still to this day on tactics of these 2 tracks. So one is people that, or community customers that were unknown that we need to either self-identify or get an appointment made. And the other track was the letting galvanize we already knew were in the system that we could get replaced as soon as possible. And here I just have listed some different type of strategy tactics that you could utilize, and ones that we utilized across various different components. I kind of consider this kind of your toolbox. So high impact, high reach tactics, community outreach, and stakeholder engagement, which is more localized, but then also targeted outreach. Now, this says paid media, but at the end of the day, partnerships, this is a topic that people want to hear about and news media is interested on. So even if you don't have the funding to maybe do a paid partnership, really trying to engage with them to really be able to tell your story before someone else tells your story, and getting out in front of it to show all the hard work that you're doing. The big takeaway here that I just wanted to share that I think would be relevant to any community that is engaging in this is really don't discredit digital platforms. They're extremely cost effective and they can be really, really targeted. So utilizing websites, your social media outlets, your email newsletters, if you do nixles, to really utilize these digital platforms to disseminate the information, especially if you're already using some of those communication tools to communicate to your residents about other programs within your community. It's definitely a great way to continue utilizing that. Don't forget the traditional media, whether that is newspaper, radios, local TV station, or even direct mail pieces, because there is still a large population in New Jersey that do rely on the paper products or do rely, and they might not be actively involved in that digital space. So this is something that we really work towards, and I'm going to share on the next few slides some examples of our campaign that launched back in 2023, just to kind of give you a flavor of kind of what we deployed. Again, I want to mention most of this, you can kind of see their squares. Most of it is digital because it is so affordable, cost-effective, and can be really targeted, which is really, really important. But it was also important for us to have catchy and unique ways to communicate with our customers throughout the state. As you can see, there's the one that's moving on the screen, the water. And then down towards the bottom, we took an opportunity during spring. So this is something that you could easily do as well. But when we're trying to say, hey, it's springtime, we all take actions in the fall back or the spring forward, kind of tie an action that you want them to take. So test your service line and let us know what it is, just when you're replacing those batteries or doing any of that maintenance on a routine basis. So this just some materials that we had that went public out to our customers. This is kind of what they saw. The big billboard that you see in the middle, the "We Need You." It's kind of like the take on like Uncle Sam. I think that's what it is, like from the military, which was iconic because you don't forget him if you saw him when you were driving by. And then the other thing, to really keep in mind is whether you have a small employee base, whether that employee base is, splitting time between a couple different departments, it's still really important that anyone within your organization understands why you're doing this program. So for us, we, as I mentioned, we have over 800 employees across the business. Many of them are involved in this program directly, but there's a lot of them that aren't involved in this program directly. But at the end of the day, it's important for them to understand what we're doing, the progress that we've made. So if they're friends and family, or even a customer that calls or they talk to them in the field, that they at least have information to give them. They might not be able to answer every single question, but we wanted to make sure that we were educating them, engaging them, so they could give that information to the customer and direct them to where they can get more information. And where these two tied together is that you probably saw the little water. We did, and this is my favorite thing that we've done in a really long time, but we engaged our employee base across the business, because if you're from New Jersey, you know that depending on where you live, you might say water a little differently. And it doesn't mean, I'll just let the video play, so hopefully you all can hear this, but this is something that we utilize to share as an ad, but engaging our own employees, because even though they work for the water company, they are also still our customers as well. So I will play this and hopefully you all can hear it.
Let's talk about water.
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 In New Jersey, no matter how you say it, we all need to come together to protect it.
Did you know that the most common source of lead in tap water is from a customer's own plumbing and service lines?
That's why New Jersey American Water is replacing all lead and galvanized steel service lines.
But we need your help to ID them. Learn more at newjerseyamwater.com/netfacts.
Let's talk about water.
Let's talk about water.
Let's talk about water.
All right. So as you can see there with that, it was fun. Our employees really engaged with it. And the really cool thing about that, especially because we do have such a large footprint, and those employees were from all over, from all different parts of our operations, geographically, when we had that video playing, on digital channels, their family, their friends, they saw it, they shared it, they engaged with it. And it's just another example of how you can really lean into this program to make it not just you're just checking a box to get to where you need to be, but really trying to engage to create that, I don't want to say excitement, but, almost, again, empowering them to take that action, and that we're really all in this together. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we also utilized engaging our community and key stakeholders to really focus on that education and provide them with tools that they could utilize in the field, on their social platforms, or especially when we were actively canvassing in their communities, but just in general saying, hey, New Jersey American Water has this program, they're our water provider, and here's where you can find out more information, or watch this video. So we have this kit. It's on our website now under stakeholder resources. It's downloadable. And what's really important here is that we engage them on multiple different platforms. So we provided them, if they do an email, a letter, or if they have a really good social outlet, or they're just a really big community, they have a big community awareness. So whether it's a elected official or just a well-known community leader, having them take the action of identifying their service line, which you can see here on the screen, City Council President in Camden. So we created a reel with him in English and in Spanish to just really convey the importance of this program, the action that residents could take. And then it shows him actually identifying his own service line towards the end of the video. And we used that targetedly when we were in Camden canvassing. So again, really trying to engage every single stakeholder that you can to really be able to validate your program, because the more validation and the more customers hear about it, or your residents hear about it, the more likely they're going to either take action or allow you to take action when the time comes. So we evolved since 2023. When we were first starting, we really wanted to make sure that our operations team on a localized level were able to really plan accordingly. And we use those real-time results and metrics and the feedback to now, we still have that statewide approach, but we are now extremely targeted when it comes to community by community, because we are now in the process of boots on the ground identification and getting the information so we can do replacements as efficiently and quickly as possible. So we worked closely with them, and now we have a more targeted approach, which is localized canvassing and community-focused engagement and education. So here you can see on the screen just some examples. I don't think this one has sound, of kind of tactics, working with your local patch or tap into, postcards, door hangers, Utilizing community events, engaging with your residents in that way. If you have an alert system, telling them that you're going to be out in the community. But here is the importance here is that we wanted to make sure that before we had boots on the ground anywhere, our customers and residents in the communities that we serve were aware of this action happening, because especially now, there's always concern when you don't know about a program and someone knocks on your door. We wanted to make sure that they knew who we were before it happened and were more likely to open that door, or even better yet, make an appointment to get their service line identified. So one thing that I hope everyone here takes away from, especially in the communications field, studies indicate that a message in order to resonate effectively, people need to see that message at least 7 times. So just sending one letter or one alert is not always going to get you the recall that you need for a program of this magnitude. Even if you are a smaller community, you want to make sure that they're aware of the app, that all the work that you're doing. And truly, I mean, anything that you're doing here with this program, it's important that your residents know about it. And they might not recall it if you only do maybe 1 or 2 things. So on the next slide, I'm just going to share kind of the tactics that we've utilized. Again, depending on the size of your customer base, you can take some of this, but I would definitely recommend not just doing one, and target those messaging to what makes sense for your community. But for us, we wanted to make sure that we started out with a customer letter. Goes through a certain process within our business that links to that customer account. So our call center would be aware of this if they happen to call in, making sure that the program was valid. They would have those resources there to say, yep, we see this marked on your account, that this is actually happening in your community. And then we followed up with mail. So we do a project packet. We're slowly transitioning this into more of a larger postcard, but in that packet, it includes really the program overview, has some FAQs, and we do include a sample of the agreement, because we think it's important that if they do end up having letter galvanized, that they have time to be able to sit with that agreement ahead of time to read it over, make sure they have any questions. So then when the time does come and we've identified their line, if it is letter galvanized, we can, they're more confident they have the questions already, and it kind of just speeds the process up. After they get that packet, about 4 to 5 days or 3 to 5 days after the packet, they're actually going to also receive a postcard, because maybe some people didn't open that packet, or maybe they opened it, skimmed it, but didn't really read into it. So we follow up with that postcard, because the postcard itself will say, and you can actually see an example on the screen, it will be like, hi, this program's happening. There's some translation depending on the community. We'll have a couple lines in the top languages in the communities that are being served there, if there's certain languages. And it really, the back is just like, take action, schedule that appointment today. So the way I like to look at postcards is I imagine someone walking from their mailbox, they open that mail, they're reading that postcard from their mailbox to their kitchen trash can. And if they can kind of look at both sides and get what they need and hopefully scan that QR code or go to a website and take the action, that's really the goal there. So you don't want to have too much on it, but you also don't want to have too little. You kind of want to find that sweet medium when you're developing a piece like that. So keep that in mind if you're developing any communication materials. And then another thing, if you have emails of your customers, utilize them. So we were able to do targeted emails to both unknown and known to say, hey, this program's coming. Here's our partner. And here's action you can take. So you can sign the agreement now digitally. Or if you believe our records are not accurate, let us know. Fill out the self-ID survey and report it back to us if you're on the known side. If you're on the unknown, there really is self-ID or schedule that appointment, because we're going to be in the community. Depending on the size of your community, looking at social media boosting, even if you're just doing a post, putting a little dollars behind it so it gets into your community deeper is really important. Or if you don't have the funding to do any type of boost, really try and, again, engage those elected leaders, engage those key stakeholders, share that link with them in an email and say, hey, we post this on social, please share it, because that organic sharing will actually help get awareness and eyes on that post for an awareness base. And as I mentioned before, connect with your local media outlets, especially our newspapers, especially your online platforms. They want, especially the Tap In Susan the Patch, they want to tell the story of the communities that they're writing about. And this is a perfect opportunity for them to help get that message out there even further. And the last step that we take to round out that 7 is a couple days prior to the launch, we utilize, similar to like a Nixle, it's our alert notification system. You have to be opted in because it's not technically an emergency. So we always encourage our customers to be opted in, but we send them a message to everyone to say, hey, this is happening, because we want all of our residents and all of our customers within that region or that town or area of town to be aware of the canvassing efforts that's going on, even if they're not someone that we're going to knock on their door. So then we move to boots on the ground. So we have our canvassers out in the field. I kind of touched on some of this already. We are partnered, CDN is our consultant, especially with this outreach methods, but we've emailed, called, text, as I mentioned before. We kind of repeat that through the process, the canvassing progressing, because we don't want to do the whole town, and then in 6 weeks or 3 months, be moving to a different part of the town if we were only in one part, and then expect them to remember something from 6 months ago. So we're intentional on like the scope of how much we're notifying each individual area. We have leave behind. So utilize a door hanger or just a bag with paperwork in it. So if you do miss them and they're at work or they're just not home, or maybe they just don't answer, you're leaving something behind that gives them the information, and it's very easy for them to take the action that you want, whether that's scheduling an appointment or whether that's identifying their line. We also follow up with an email, again, for those customers that we have emails with halfway through or towards the end of like 1 or 2 rounds of canvassing. We'll send a follow-up saying, hey, this is actively happening in your neighborhood. We haven't been able to reach you yet. Please schedule an appointment that's convenient for you. So as you can see, the bottom one is an online scheduling app. There's a lot of them out there. There are free options, especially if you're only looking at, maybe one calendar, something that's definitely affordable, but it kind of goes back to that first slide where it's meeting your customers or meeting your residents where they're at. They're probably much more inclined to click on a link to then schedule an appointment that works for their schedule based on your availability than having to call and take time out of their day to call you or to email you. It's efficient. They get it done. They get it in their calendar, and it's really easy for them to take that action that you're looking for. And then another thing too, if you have the bandwidth or you have the staff to be able to do this, but doing outgoing calls, identifying those, maybe not right when all the comms are going out, but a little bit, if you're as you're moving through street by street, it's important maybe taking that additional step to say, hey, we're going to be in your street next week. Is there any day or time that's best for you for us to be able to get an appointment scheduled? So really trying to make the action as easy as possible on the customer side. So what happens to residents or customers that are unresponsive, right? You've sent the emails, you've sent the letters, you've knocked on doors, and this might be a little different for, a municipality that's, just serving their town. You probably aren't going to be following up with your municipality, but those that might be serving a few or a larger base, I think it is important to always follow up and provide that update with the municipalities that you are serving or the leadership, those local leaders, because they might be able to help break that barrier, especially if it's a pocketed area. Maybe it's a couple block radius that you just been really having a hard time connecting with. Having those follow-up communications with those key leaders within your neighbor or in your communities that you serve can really maybe help break that down, break those barriers down. And the other big thing that we've done is we're recording all of these outreach attempts, because it is really important to show that we are making a conscious effort, and it's not just one and done or twice and done or the bare minimum. We're really trying to make a conscious effort to connect with these customers, and we're documenting it. So after our canvassing kind of moves on to the next community, there is a period of time where if someone calls in, we'll try to make it work for them, right? To be able to get someone out there. But If they don't, they go back into our statewide education campaign, our emails that we send out. They will receive that the yearly notification for known and unknown. And then depending on kind of what happens in those communities or that area, whether it's test pits or we're doing a main replacement project, we'll have our contractors also reach out to those customers as we are actively doing the work on those streets, because that's what follows. After we do canvassing, we come in and start doing the replacement work. So as I kind of close out, you know, I talked a lot about various different strategies, and I think this really shows that when you maximize identifications through strategic comms as well as canvassing efforts, you really get the full impact and you get the most out of your program. And many of us know test pits are much more costly than canvassing or, you know, an email that you're sending or a letter that you're sending. So if you can combine these, it really, as you can see here under full comms, it really sparks that customer either self-report rate, because even if they're like, I've seen the letter 6 times and I didn't self-report, but I don't really want someone to come here, so I'm going to just self-report. Finally, they're taking the action that you need or that you want to make your program as efficient as possible and as cost-effectively as possible. So really trying to identify a way that you can engage both, if possible, is always really great to increase that success rate. Just some stats for us as our campaign. And I think the biggest one here is, or a few of them, you know, the over 60% open rate on emails is quite unheard of in any email industry across all industries. It's usually traditionally around 20 to maybe 30%. So we've doubled that. And the one thing I can say, which I think is relevant for everyone here, is this shows that people care about this. So if you are sending an email to your residents and you mention your lead service line replacement program or lead service lines, the likelihood of them opening that email is going to be high because it is a topic of discussion around the entire country, especially New Jersey. And they are going to want to know what you as their water provider is doing for them or actions that they can take. And then the other big thing here that I just want to point out is that average cost of self-report ID. You know, all of this at the end of the day, whether you say this program is free or, you know, or there's an indirect cost, at the end of the day, there's a payment, right, at the end of these. So someone's going to have to pay for it. And for us, it's really important in our plan is that we didn't want to just test pit every property because that's a lot of money. So in this program, you know, our mission critical here was to ensure that the cost per ID, self-report ID, was under $500 because that would offset the cost of having to do a test pit. So even with self-reporting, our canvassing efforts, we've been able to save or have a cost avoidance of over $8 million, $8 million, which I think is really important, especially if you're a smaller system or you're looking at this. Don't discredit spending money on comms because it will help in the long run. So maybe not, you might not be able to deploy everything, but it is a really, really key, important part to decrease that overall cost or have cost savings when you're trying to deploy a program like this. And so one other thing, I did want to share this resource. It's a little dated. It's in the process of being updated. But it is free. So there's a QR code on your screen and it is to the toolkit. So most of the things that I talked about today are in this toolkit. There are other examples across the United States of how they've implemented just proactive communication around water quality and also lead in particular, and how you can really utilize this. And there's really great examples, which is, I thought, important to share here because it kind of gives more examples for smaller systems, medium-sized systems, and it should be, I'm on the Public Affairs Council at AWWA, and we're in the process of updating this right now. So we are going to have that available for those with the LCRI. But before you embark on this journey, if you haven't already, really try to look at this list here and see if you can identify your partners. Who in your communities are your partners? What channels of communication do you already utilize in the community that you're serving? And then just make sure that you're receiving feedback, you have that engagement, and you have consistency. Like, don't just do it once, keep doing it, and be really transparent about your program as much as you can, because your residents or your customer base, they just want to know what you're doing, right? They just want to know kind of what the program is, how they can help. And that was one thing that we really noticed, is that they weren't mad about the program. They simply just wanted to know what they could do and what the next steps were. So I will close out with this slide. And if you haven't taken this away yet, consistent communication is key. You will never communicate with your customer base or your residents too much about topics that matter to them. And lead service lines is a big topic, and it is something that's really important to, I would argue, pretty much every resident in the state. Identifying, having those direct communications in the channels that your customers or your residents prefer. So if you know that Nixle's the best way, or you have a really great, robust email list, utilize it. If Facebook is the place to be, or Nextdoor, really try to engage in those platforms that are free to use, that you can really tell that message in an organic way. Identify the partners and your stakeholders, whether that's contractors and consultants, or this, leaders in your communities, from church groups to nonprofits, just even if it's your community or even county-wise, really try to take the time to identify them and engage them, because they will help move your program forward and validate it. And the big thing here too is also be willing to pivot or enlist the right sources. Advocate if you need those resources, advocate for it throughout the whole process, because as we learned over the last few years, we had to pivot a lot, right? We had a roadblock or a challenge, and we really tried to move as quickly and as efficiently as we could to kind of keep the ball rolling. And then last but not least, as I mentioned on the last slide, this is really an opportunity for you to either build trust with the community that you're serving, or continue that trust with them and stay really transparent. If you make your customer education unique to you, to your town, or to your area that you serve, it's just going to resonate with them more. Similar to how we leaned into how we all say water differently in New Jersey, we leaned really into that, and it still to this day is like one of our top performing materials, because it is so identical to, it's very Jersey centric. And I really challenge everyone here, even if you're not in the comms department, think about, you've worked at your utility or your department for a very long time. Really lean into that. See where there might be opportunities, and really try to take this as an opportunity to make this program moving your entire organization forward. So with that, I'm going to close out, but employing these tactics will help you continue to really either continue your program or really robust your program as you move forward. So I will stop sharing if there's any questions. It's hard for me to see the chat, so wasn't sure if there was anything else up.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Kristin. Just not necessarily the chat, the Q&A. It's a separate category. I know you all will have a lot of questions. Yeah, so we're going to have a little break now. We'll come back at 10:35. So be prompt. In the meantime, go do what you have to do. Look at the questions and answers, type your own questions, go get that coffee, go take that bio break, whatever. See you at 10:35. Hi, everyone. It's 10:35. Can you start raising your hands digitally to let us know that you're all here, you're all present? Okay. All right. It looks like half of you are back. Thank you. If you know someone who's not back, encourage them to get back. Mhm. Ooh, we got 38 out of 78. Come on, people, come back.
I see some people saying that they're here in the chat. For those of you who don't know how to raise your hand on here, if you're new to Zoom, the raise hand is at the bottom of your screen in that toolbar.
It's directly to the left of share. Oh wait, they don't have share. I'm a panelist. Sorry. Yeah, look for the little hand. Did that help the critical mass, Jackie?
Yeah, it looks like we got a few more. We're like 75%. So if people are here within like 5 minutes, I think that's okay.
Okay, we'll give them another minute. So for the benefit of those who are here right now, just want to point out that our next speaker is from Ridgewood Water, and there were quite a few questions in the Q&A button that pertain that will be answered by the Ridgewood presentation. So be on the lookout for that. There's a lot of commentary in the Q&A. Ooh, wait for the Ridgewood presentation. Okay, everybody. Our next speaker is Yolanda McCollom from Ridgewood Water.
Hi, everybody. Share my screen and present. Oops. Can everyone see my screen, I hope? Let's see, am I sharing? No, I don't. Share. There we go. Okay. Okay, I am screen sharing. Good morning. It's great to be here. I wanted to thank Deandrah and Noemi and Jackie for organizing and moderating the training, and to Kristin and Chelsea for such informative presentations. Those were great. I learned a lot. and especially also from Chelsea with some great ideas for communications. So my name is Yolanda McCollom. I'm an environmental engineer at Ridgewood Water, and I am managing the lead service line replacement program with the help of CDM Smith, who's our consultant, who's been just a great, provided great guidance and help with getting our program underway. So I'll be talking about our program, which is a voluntary program. So it's got some unique features because of that. Sorry. Okay, now I'm in the correct mode here. So about Ridgewood Water, I'll tell you a little bit about our system first and kind of get into our program and then talk about lessons learned later on. So we serve a total population of about 62,000 customers, and we have about 21,000 service connections. Right now, we have 52 wells, 31 points of entry, which is going to become 12 as we institute our PFAS treatment facilities. So we'll have less points of entry, and we'll have our PFAS up and running by 2026. So that's another huge program that we're doing in addition to the lead service line. We do get supplemental water from Passaic Valley, Hawthorne, and Veolia, especially for peak demand periods. The municipalities we serve are Glenrock, Midland Park, Ridgewood, and Wyckoff. And so you can see our service area here. We have different service zones, pressure zones, and so it's a very complex system comparatively. So we've been actively identifying and replacing main to curb, the utility side lead service lines since 2018. Back then, we purchased a hydro excavator truck for about $500,000 so that we could do our own inspections. And we've really taken pride in our database. We have a great inventory. We have a really good GIS team that records everything and verifies, materials and maps everything out. And it's really been a wonderful tool to our program. We have this service line material lookup tool that we launched in 2021. There's a QR code for you. The one I have up is for actually my address. I live in Ridgewood, but I was going to see if I can show you the active one. Let's see. I have it pulled up here. So we have a lookup tool. We have a little disclaimer. This is kind of one of the lessons learned. People go on here and check their service line material, and if it's different than what they think, then that they have questions. So it's good to have a disclaimer on there that says this is to the best of our knowledge, the material of your service line. So I'll just type in my address. Kind of see, and then anyone, this is open to the public facing. So we don't have, all the information on here. And I noticed we do use red and green, which the colorblind people do have a problem with. So that's something we should think about for the future. So I'll pick my address. I luckily have copper, shows that it was installed in 71. I've only lived here for a couple of years, so was pleasantly surprised. I'll choose another one nearby. This one we show to be galvanized on our side, main to curb, and on the customer side. Purple is unknown. So like, for instance, this one is on the Ridgewood Water side, it's unknown, and on the customer side, it's thought to be copper. So that's just an example of how our interactive map works. Go back to my next slide. And then also our GIS department has created these dashboards for internal use. This is the overall system wide. So this shows a matrix of lead service lines and unknowns. So, and then it also shows exempt lines 570. And I was thinking about Kristin's comment on the fire laterals, that some of these probably will need to be added to the ones that are not exempt anymore. But this is an example of the overall system. You can see our service area. you can see the red and the purples and how it's unevenly distributed. And I'll talk more about that later. So here's Glen Rock. So Glen Rock has about 12,000 people. It's in the southern part here. And just kind of show you the dashboard for each one, just to give you an idea. Midland Park, 7,000 people, smallest of the four population-wise. Ridgewood, by far, we have the largest number of people and lead service lines. And then Wyckoff, you can see, is almost all green, just a little bit, just a few lead service lines to work with there. So why implement a voluntary lead service line replacement program? The reasons are, so number one, there's no mandate. We couldn't, by law, tell the people that they have to replace their service line on the customer side, on the privately owned side. So we have to allow them to opt out at this point. Maybe in the future that will change, but they have to be allowed to opt out. Funding. So for Ridgewood Water, we don't necessarily qualify for a lot of the special assistance or additional special needs funding for socioeconomic level, et cetera. So we don't have that big grant funding or government funding that will allow us to easily implement a program that's not voluntary. And then the local politics, we have 4 municipalities that we work with. Everyone has sort of a different opinion on how to approach this. So we've had to really get together with them and stakeholders and determine a program that works for everyone and that makes sense. And then the health risks. So we have a very robust corrosion control program, and our testing that we do, we don't have lead levels that are action levels. So we tell the customers it's important, obviously health-wise, to get rid of all the lead and galvanized lines, but they're not in danger necessarily. And so we want them to feel safe about drinking our water, because we do take care with that corrosion control treatment, but also at the same time know that these lines need to be replaced. So that kind of went into the calculus of not doing a mandatory program, because we're comfortable that we can get this done by 2031 without posing a health risk. And then, of course, what I talked about was the uneven distribution of customers. So we didn't want to have something that everyone would pay for across the board for the customer side lines, and then people in Wyckoff would there would be pushback from them because they wouldn't want to participate in that and have their dollars going toward the lead lines that they don't have many at all. So the program kind of timeline and overview. So from 2021 to 2023, we had these strategy sessions with the 4 towns, with the elected officials and managers to achieve the consensus for the program funding approach. We decided on an ordinance and shared service agreements so that people could opt in, and Ridgewood Water could hire the contractor and they could go and do the private side. Because right now we have no legal way to replace the private side. Customers would have to do that on their own otherwise. So we had this whole process of presenting the ordinance to the different towns at their council meetings, and then them adopting them. We had full success on that. There was really no pushback. We had the first reading and then second reading, and those all worked great. There was a fair amount of questions at Midland Park and Glen Rock, I would say. Wyckoff and Ridgewood were pretty smooth sailing, but people were engaged. Not a lot of people showed up, but it was an engaging process to get the ordinances passed and to kind of start the public in understanding what we're trying to do here. So then we've had this public outreach period and the opt-in, opt-out period. Now this was just arbitrary. We wanted to create an opt-in period so that people felt, oh, I better do this because it's going to end. In reality, we're going to have a new opt-in period every year. So people will still be able to opt in if they choose not to now, but we wanted to have a time frame like 6 months so that people would push them to actually sign up and not wait. And then, so right now our plans and specs are being reviewed by iBank because, part of that ordinance was the funding. So we have to, we're going to be, taking an iBank loan, and that's part of what, had to be approved by all the towns and by Ridgewood, which is going to hold the loan. And then the other towns will repay us. I can answer more questions about that later, but, so there is funding involved. So it's not a matter of just going out and doing the work. We're going through all those review periods with iBank, and we'll be bidding the project out in the next couple of months, and then hopefully starting the work in early summer. So the first year we're going to try to replace 500 lead service lines. We have enough people signed up to do that. And if we have, 475 and we have the contractor set up for 500, we'll do 25 just utility side, which we have hundreds of those also. So that will kind of fill in any gap between the number of people that sign up in that first contract period and our goal of to get to that 500 number. We'll fill in with just the main to curbs. And then in subsequent years, we will do hopefully 500 more. And if we use some of those outreach techniques, I think that Chelsea talked about, we'll be able to achieve that. There'll be need for much more push and reaching out to people, because the first 500 people are engaged, and then you have to reach all those unresponsive people, which I can see will be a challenge. So here's what our agreement looks like. We mailed this out to everybody, and then also provided by email and on the website. So they could get it a number of different ways. They could fill it out by hand. They could drop it off. They could fill it out online. And I'll show you the website in a second. It's a little bit long. It's like a 5-page form, because it's got all it's kind of a legal form. In the same sense, if they sign this, we still are giving them an option of changing their mind once we have the final price. So anyway, you can just see these are the options they're given. Option 1A is, yes, I want Ridgewood Water to replace my service line, and I want to finance it through the program. It's a 30-year loan, and it'll be in the region of a couple $100 a year if they finance it. Option 1B is, yes, I want Ridgewood Water to replace my service line, but I can pay for it all at once. So as soon as the work is done, we're going to give a couple week window where they can pay once they get that final invoice, basically. And if they don't, then they would be automatically folded into the financing program. And then option 2 is, yes, I want to replace my service line, but I will do it on my own with my own plumbing contractor. And that is, we definitely, are happy to, for people to choose that option also. It's either or is great to us. And then option 3 is want a little more information. So we ask them why, if they're saying, I don't want to participate at all. And we kind of get a little bit of feedback there for that option if they choose that. So, so far we've used for public communication, obviously all the unknowns and unknowns. We've of our, what did I say, 22,000 lines, 21,000 lines, we have a couple thousand that need to be replaced. So we've outreached to about 2,300 people. We don't have as much outreach to the general public because they're just not affected. I mean, they can see the website and everything, but we haven't really done a lot of general outreach. It's very targeted. We have a flyer. That's on the right that we've shared with people on why, what the program is and just an overview. We have our annual DEP required notifications. And then kind of like what Chelsea was talking about, I do have a lot of emails. And so I do email people a lot. I do mass emails to all the people who have, responded to us at all. And I do track, and I'll show you my tracking spreadsheet later. I track my communications. So because we have a relatively small system compared to New Jersey water, it's a manageable thing for me to actually look at all the responses we've done and kind of track what kind of outreach we've had with the different people. And I have talked to many people on the phone. People have been using the website. And we do have social media postings also. The village of Ridgewood, and then all 4 towns actually are helping us to get out the message. So we have a public communications person for the village, and then the other 4 towns, their managers are actively communicating this program to their residents also. So far, the top concerns are really cost. People would be happy to have us replace their line, but they want to know how much exactly it's going to cost. And I've been throwing out the number 5,000 many times. You know, I just use that as my round number. It'll cost about 5,000. We don't know yet. We need to have a public bid, I tell them, but it's in that general range. And then their cost, if they finance it, will be a couple $100 a year. So that's doable for most people, is the financing one, if they can't come up with, because 5,000 is a lot to ask people to pay at once. They also ask about schedule, especially the people that are really enthusiastic about the program. They want to know, okay, when are you going to do it? Once they're signed up, they want it done. And then, of course, many people are worried about a big trench in their front yard and what kind of restoration that's going to involve. So we tell them that, the contractor will be doing trenchless and in all cases, unless they can't. And then it's going to be interesting and tricky to see what happens when they run into some rock or tree roots or some way where they're going to have to, have different holes in the front yard, and people do get upset about their landscaping and whatnot. But restoration will be part of the, we'll promise to restore everything to how we found it. But I know that can be contentious sometimes. And then health, of course, people are concerned about lead in their drinking water. And like I said, we do reiterate that we have the corrosion control treatment so that people aren't, alarmed, but they do know that the best way to not have to worry about lead in the water is to get rid of the lead service line. So they hopefully understand that too. So when people fill out those forms I was showing you online, we collect it in a survey 123 format. And this way, our GIS crew can use this information easily. It's compatible. So this kind of shows you at the beginning, June 1st is when we kind of launched this. We had a ton of people, sign up right away. If you look at just the formal responses, people who actually filled out the form, we've got about a 25% response rate. Now that doesn't include a lot of people who didn't fill out the form and chose to replace on their own. So we have some of those too, and I'll show that later. But this is kind of an overview of our survey results. Now this is what I take our database, and I made a spreadsheet, which is kind of my master list that I share on the cloud. So our consultant CDM uses it. We use it but I use, this is what I go to. So all the yellow is someone who has responded. They may not have filled out a form, but they've called us. And then I have all the options on here. I don't know how small it is on your screen, but I have all the options that people choose. And so that it's just really easy for me to open this up and have a quick overview of what I'm looking at based on my color scheme. So this is my spreadsheet that I use constantly, and I basically took our GIS database, and last February they gave me the data in spreadsheet form, and I just use this for from here on out, because it's nice. It's a certain amount of people, like 3,000 people are on the list, but it's not going to change. So it's always going to have the 3,000. Their category will change, and what their statuses will change. And I just build on this. I find it very useful. I'm a spreadsheet person. Some people are more Excel and Access type people, and some people are more GIS. And I just think better when I can look at the spreadsheet for some reason. And then monthly, I've been putting together these progress reports. So I take that dashboard with that matrix that showed you the different categories, and I just kind of make this little progress report so that our communications people and stuff can show people if they're wondering what the status is. So this is another kind of response percentage I was thinking about. I'm calling it the total engagement to date. So we've got these 200 lines that have been replaced, and then we've got people that have chosen option 2 to self-replace. But there's some overlap in there. So anyway, I'm saying that we've had about close to 800 people that that have responded. And so out of about the 2,300, that's about 34%. So that's where I'm getting that number. It's just a good way to kind of track how we're doing. And like I said, we're pretty solid for the first year. So option 1 with the 447, that's close to 500. It's going to be more than that, but we'll be close to getting to that 500 level once we start our project. Oh, I guess it's time for the code. So I think that we'll show you the code. We can write that down. And then we'll continue.
1 second.
Okay.
Okay, we have the second code here. If you guys could write that down and also pick one of the options just so that we know that you got the code.
Should I continue?
Yeah, we can continue. We have about 72 of 77, so.
Okay. Okay, so I guess I'm going to dive right into, I'm going to be going through about 7 categories of key outcomes and lessons learned. Number 1, I'll be talking about the unanticipated surge in customer-initiated service line replacements. Secondly, the inventory challenges, and then galvanized tails and other unexpected findings. Logistics and project planning issues with voluntary replacements, customer communication, big ticket items that can blow up a budget, and strategies to increase participation. So the first one is the unanticipated surge in customer-initiated service line replacements. So as soon as we started, broadcasting this project, we got a lot of people wanting to do it on their own. And so, like Kristin was talking about, we can't have partial materials out there. So if a customer has a lead service line and they initiate replacement, Ridgewood Water has to replace the utility side if that's also lead. So this has been a challenge because we have quite a few engaged customers that wanted to get theirs replaced right away. So our crews, in an ideal world, if it was just a couple a week or something, our crews could go and meet them there and do our side, the same day. But our crews have many other things to do. There's water main breaks, there's hydrant flushing, there's all of the things they normally do. And this was just, way too much to ask them to. There's not enough people or time to meet all the customers that we're wanting to self-replace. And then also we can utilize the 45-day list, as Kristin was talking about too, but that's not as good for customers because then there's more flushing protocol, then there's more there's a 2 different days of turn when their line is turned off, plus their knowledge of not having everything done at once and them having a partial material for partial lead for 45 days. So ideally we try to be there the same day. So we had this need for an outside contractor to support this work and basically be an extension of our crew. So that was our idea until our lead service line program was able to start, which was going to take a while. You know, we had the whole opt-in period. We have, you know, to get our specs reviewed by iBank. We have a whole series of processes and procedures till the project can you know, take off. So we needed something for the interim. So we had 3 contractors that were very commonly used in the area that we all knew of, and they're reputable contractors. So we were able to secure emergency or immediate funding, $250,000 to keep up with these main to curb replacements that were customer initiated, and we were able to use any of the 3 contractors that we knew. If other ones would come, if a customer would come and say, well, my contractor can do, you know, we could approach that on a case-by-case basis, but our funding was based on the fact that we were using contractors that we knew and were reputable. So, I mean, in an ideal world, we could just continue this and just have a bucket of funding. And so anyone who did their line on their own that wasn't part of the program, we would have these crews available to help do our main to curb side. But that funding, we exhausted it. We used it all. So now we have a new contract. And this one we had to bid out though. So the first one was easy because we were just able to use our three local guys who knew exactly what they were doing. We're very familiar with the area. Now we had one where we had to bid it out because we weren't authorized to use any more funding until it was publicly bid. So we bid it out, and so now we have actually we've done it twice now. We have another contractor that's going to be doing this. So that was challenging because we got really comfortable using our 3 contractors, and now we're introducing more, and we don't get to use those 3. So if those 3 are doing, you know, a few customer sides a week, now we have our new contractor that has to. Now it's 2 contractors meeting in one, you know, on one street doing one location, and it gets crowded, and so it's a little bit challenging logistically, but. Again, our crews are not able to always be there, and so it's really necessary for us to use this process. We do in-kind replacement, so if it's a 3/4 inch line, we're replacing with 3/4 inch copper. If someone would have a brand new service put in, it would be 1 inch, but for the purposes of this, we're replacing in kind. And the contractor connects with a brass corporation adapter to the corp stop, the existing corp stop. They don't do a new tap, or we need to be there to inspect it. So we provide the inspections. So if they think a new tap is needed, Ridgewood Water would need to be there for the new tap. Okay, so that's been a challenge. The second challenge I was going to talk to is about the inventory challenges. So we have a really extensive inventory, as I told you, and we're very proud of it. But, you know, the property records and everything goes back to the 1920s. So there are a bunch that get reversed. You know, we use our vacuum excavator to do the inspections, and so we can double check and sometimes correct the material found. And also our vac excavator sometimes breaks down, and so we have weeks where we're not using it. It's not as consistent as, you know, we always want it to be. And then throughout the years, we've had many contractors replace private side lines without reporting anything to Ridgewood Water. So now it's better. It's I think we're being tracked better the last several years, but you know, we have copper lines out there that we have no idea, and so we try to just glean that information and just as much as we can and update everything. Some cases there's we think of it's a lead service line, and then we find it to be copper. And there's been a couple places where the contractor said, well, I'm going to replace it anyway. I'm going to charge you $5,000 and replace your copper line with a new copper line. And we've had one, I'll talk about a little later, that happened, and we had to do a PSA as a result of that. But
excuse me, Yolanda, I just wanted to
yes.
give you the 5-minute mark.
Oh, wow. Thank you. All right. So this is kind of similar. I mean, the galvanized tail. So in the past, contractors have been allowed to leave a galvanized tail. So they technically have a lead service line, even though it's just maybe a 2-foot portion. So Ridgewood Water, because we allowed that, when we do our utility side and the customer side is copper and there's a small galvanized tail, we don't make the customer replace that tail. We will replace it when we replace the utility side. I'm going to keep going because I don't have that much time. So we had to do this PSA because these people had someone come out because in our inventory, on the lead service line lookup tool, it showed that their line was lead. They had the contractor come out. He found copper. He replaced it anyway, charged them $5,000, and they were just livid. They were very upset. So this was in Midland Park, and they went to the manager and the mayor, and they were very upset. So we put out this public service announcement. And then, like I said, with the lookup tool, we need to definitely have a disclaimer on there that says, or we do have one, but it's just important to have one that says this is to the best of our knowledge, and you should verify it before replacing. Okay, I'm only on number 4 out of 7, so I've got to cruise through these. So for logistics and planning with voluntary. So this is especially matters with paving projects. So, you could have 3 people on one block sign up for the program and 2 other people not. And then you do those replacements and you repave or whatever, you have infrared the road, and then the other 2 decide the next year to opt in. We can't say, no, you can't opt in the next year. Yes, they can opt in anytime during our whole program. So it's a little bit of a whack-a-mole process. Let's see, customer communications. I could talk about this for another hour, but so yeah, people want to know why, if they have a galvanized line, why is it even considered lead? So we do have some material on the website, and we do communicate, why that is. For us, it meant going from 200 service line replacements to 2,000. It made a big difference when the galvanized is included, but people push back on that. We do get pushback because they don't have a lead, they have a galvanized and all that. And then survey 1, 2, 3, people fill out the survey online, and they get that quick little message that said response recorded, but they don't get like an email, or they don't get something that they can see and have that shows what their response was and that this is coming up. So that's a little bit, I would say it'd be better if they got an automated email or something that they could save, once they sign up. And then for the emailing and communicating back once people have reached out, some people don't give their emails. They don't have an email. They don't give their emails. Some people give a phone number. So it is a mix and match bag of how to directly respond to those people that have signed up as far as when we update them on the cost and schedule. And I think CDM has a really great idea for when we get to the scheduling of the actual project, but I don't know the name of it, so I can't talk about that yet. But there should be something that's a nice, easy process once we get into the actual project. Let's see, I'm going to keep going here. Big ticket items that can blow up a budget. So traffic control, the police around here, they charge a lot. I mean, it can add, thousands of dollars to each location. It's a lot. So I guess just keep that in mind. The road opening permits and moratorium penalties for roads that have been recently paved, that adds up. So I guess one of the things is we're passing only the actual cost of replacement onto the customers. We are absorbing as the whole Ridgewood Water, we're absorbing all the other costs. So that's how we're doing it, because we didn't want to overwhelm them or we didn't want their costs to escalate because of those other costs. And then infrared asphalt, everyone loves it. I think it looks great. It's a good process, but it can be very expensive. So. And then I think my last one, strategies to increase participation. So we're going to have a sale of home ordinance, and I think each town will choose to adopt it. Ridgewood, I think, will be first. So people will have to replace their line upon the sale of their home. That's one big one. Door-to-door outreach. I'm a big fan of door-to-door outreach. I had this grand idea of enlisting all these high school kids, science club kids to go door-to-door, and I have failed miserably on this one. The schools won't allow it, insurance reasons. I don't know. I have failed miserably on this one, but I'm still working on door-to-door outreach. Let's see. Blocks where we have majority people participating. We reach out to the other couple that haven't. And then I think my time's up. And then those education materials that Kristin was talking about, I think that'll get more people to sign up, giving those major, minor disturbances. I think that'll make more people sign up later. And then those public signage and videos that Chelsea talked about, I think that'll be great. We will definitely utilize more of that. I think my time is up. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. It was fun to talk about. I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Yolanda. Next up on my schedule, I see Alexandra Wells from Passaic Valley Water Commission on more voluntary replacements and lessons learned.
Hey, let me just try to share my screen here. Apologies. There we go. Right. All right, here we go. So sorry. All right. Hi, my name is Alex Wells, and I am the supervising engineer at Passaic Valley Water Commission. I'd like to thank all of the previous presenters. It's been, you guys are all so knowledgeable, and I always enjoy learning from everybody else and just seeing who's doing what and what can I do better. And every time I heard something, something else kind of came up in my mind, and it reminded me of stuff that maybe I could do better or something I could learn from. So Passaic Valley is the largest public water utility in New Jersey. We've got two major water supply sources, and we provide water to almost 800,000 people between our retail and our wholesale customers. We have two major sources of water, the Wanacue Reservoir and the Passaic River. Our total average daily flow is about 77 million gallons. And our owner cities are Clifton, Patterson, Passaic, and Prospect Park. We also have North Arlington, Postbrook, Highcrest, and Lodi as a leased system. And we have 23 wholesale customers that we service. We have 3 open finished water reservoirs, and we're in the process of hopefully covering our first one.
Alex, quick interruption. Can you put it on like some kind of presentation mode? Presentation mode?
Sorry, I thought I was.
We see the whole little list of slides and.
Oh, do you? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. It was
possible.
on presentation mode. Let me see. My apologies.
Thanks.
Let me see if I can get this to. I am so sorry. So you saw the entire thing?
Well, we saw the little thumbnails, but that's okay. You can.
What's funny is on my screen it was the presentation mode, and that's where
Okay,
I'm like,
we were seeing the whole PowerPoint thing.
Still seeing the thumbnails?
Yep. You're also not on camera. You're also not on camera. We see a beautiful waterfall behind you.
Alex, try the first menu option that says from beginning. It may enlarge it. If not,
under
slideshow view, and that could help.
Did that work?
No.
Did
What
that
about
work?
slideshow view next to animation? Try that menu option. That might help.
Sorry. You mean where it says from begin, like from
Alex,
beginning or current slide, right?
if you right click, Alex, it should say switch screens, like switch presenter and view. Try that. No.
I'm sorry. Right click where?
On your where you have your presentation, where you see the whole, the full
Yeah.
presentation view. If you right click, does it allow you to switch screens?
Oh, show presenter view? No, screen. This is so weird. No, that's not it.
Alex, does your keyboard have a dedicated key to go full screen? Usually it's one of the F keys, F5 maybe, F8, something like that.
Yeah. Can you see it now?
No.
I'll probably just continue. You can still see the slides pretty well.
I am so sorry. I don't know what's happening because I only see my
we can see the next slide. Oh no.
Yeah, let's just continue because otherwise we're gonna fall off schedule.
I'm
And it's a good presentation.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
And if you could unblock your camera right now, we don't see you. We just see the waterfalls. So you're not on screen.
I am not on screen.
No.
Which is weird again because there we go.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I am so sorry about all this.
No worries.
All right. So let me go back to sharing my screen here. And let me go from here. All right. So we're in the process of covering up our first reservoir, but the reason I bring up the finished water reservoirs, because we have the finished water reservoirs, corrosion control is a little bit more difficult to do system wide. So it's really important that we take part in this in the lead program. So we have one construction contract covering the 4 geographic areas of our owner cities, Patterson, Clifton, Passaic, and Prospect Park. It's free to the customer, and we've had local ordinances passed which allow us access to the homes. And, there are fines if access is denied. We have roughly 6,500 lead service lines that need to be replaced, 11,000 unknowns, out of roughly about 70,000 service lines. Passaic Valley actually started replacing lead lines back in the 80s, which is part of the reason why some of our numbers are a little lower than some of our neighbors. We have one CM contract with CDM Smith. They've utilized local canvassers, which have been hired to talk to our customers directly. We've been doing GIS tracking and inspections through them. Our total budget is roughly $36 million. And we were able to get about a 77% principal forgiveness, which is what allows us to offer the free replacement on both the owner and customer side in our owner cities. The project is essentially 3 phases for every single project, every single location. So you get your preliminary inspection, there's the replacement, and then you have your restoration. So envision having 15 to 20 mini projects taking place every single day. It's important that you have someone working for the utility who's also managing the program from the utility side, in addition to the CM, our CM contractor. I'm going to be dealing with a lot of the lessons learned that we've picked up on, and we're hoping that they'll help other people. Evaluate your geographic area and see if it makes sense to divide up your contract into smaller contracts. That's something that we've decided, after the fact, and hindsight is 2020. we kind of wish that we would have bid out separate construction contracts for some of our areas, which would allow us a little bit more flexibility in how we, if issues arose with a certain contractor, that we could then, keep progress moving with the other contractor at the same time. There were different reasons why we decided to go with the one contractor, but I think in retrospect, we probably would have put out at least 2 contracts on the construction side. Local ordinances definitely govern our work hours. We've also been able to talk to some of our different cities and trying to figure out whether we can start work earlier and maybe go in a little later as needed. There's different permitting processes for our different cities, understanding how to get everything permitted, whether we're in a county road or whether we're in a DOT type road, and understanding what our permitting processes are. Again, the number of contracts that you have and the ability to manage the oversight for the work being done. And understanding your subcontracting requirements versus any local capability that you might have either in-house or within the cities. For data management is probably one of the most important parts of your entire contract, and being able to maintain a history of your change within your database and making sure that everybody's working off of the most recent data, and that your subconsultant and your contractor have access to the latest GIS information. So allowing your contractor to have limited access to your database so that they can check all your tap card informations and any real-time updates that are occurring, making sure that you have that single source of data truth, and understanding how the different entities are utilizing the data between them, so that you are getting that real-time update, and making sure. One of the things that we've run into within Passaic Valley is just making sure that some aspects that you normally wouldn't be, that might not always go into our GIS, that we're looking into them with regards to customer, people who call our customer relations, and making sure that that information gets right into our GIS database, or any new service lines, so that information gets removed, so that that information gets updated in the database. And we haven't always maintained internally some of that information as seamlessly as we would have hoped. So maintaining that single source of truth. And also updating your customer contact information as your program progresses, making sure, again, that you are maintaining that one single truth. CDM has been maintaining a dashboard for us where we can go on a daily basis and make sure and track our progress and see where we need to be in order to make sure that we attain our program goals. We're looking to finish by early summer of next year with the entire program within our owner cities. So just making sure that we're maintaining the amount of replacements that we need to on a daily basis. We're starting to get to that difficult area, that difficult point where we're getting to the customers that didn't readily participate in the program. We've been contacting them multiple times, so we're getting to the less productive stage of the program. But I think we've done a good job of just making sure that our we're all on the same page and that we're working towards a future goal. Again, your data, making sure that this is an example of some of the data that we get from our consultant, and understanding where we are with the program, where we have to target to get more information, comparing our non-responsive addresses to delinquencies. Are they not responding because they're afraid that they owe money and that we won't do the work? Are there abandoned properties that we're not familiar with? In some cases, we have multiple customer accounts, but really only one service line. And just being able to get that granular data so that we can drive it down to be even more unique. Accessing homes, you need to emphasize that, you know, your inspectors and your contractors, we're not there to identify code issues. You know, we may need multiple visits to gain access, and sometimes you need to skip a house because there is no access and you need to be prepared to go back. Recruiting local residents to act as ambassadors and canvassers for the program, having trusted individuals that the local customer is not going to be afraid to talk to and allow them access into their homes. We were lucky enough to be able to partner with our owner cities. They did draft up ordinances with fines that are applicable once, you know, once we've, you know, gone through every other option that we've had and it's failed. And also being able to access the property, the homeowner, if there's a renter, the renter can allow us access to the property. We don't necessarily need to have access from the homeowner. Making sure our customer service is trained, and both internally and externally, and so that they understand how to answer questions. These are just samples of some of the portions of some of the ordinances that have been passed. You can access these examples through our website under the LED program. And as you can see, it says that we're supposed to be given access to the program, to the property. There are fines that can be leveraged if need be, although we're trying our hardest not to get to that point. All we really want is to be able to get into the property and properly replace the lines. When you're accessing the homes, make sure your inspectors are taking good pre and post inspection photos. There are a lot of claims that come through. Some might be reasonable, some not, but the photos definitely help you identify whether there was a problem or not. Ensuring your CM inspection group is held accountable. You know, performing periodic inspections by in-house team members just to ensure that all of the utility standards are being met, or just to also be aware of any issues that might be happening, or to understand some of the challenges that they're facing as they're doing the work for us. Again, just recruiting your local residents and your fines there. And these are just examples of some of the pre and post inspection pictures, making sure that you get good pictures of the outside and the inside, understanding what kind of condition your home is in, making sure that if there is any debris within the basement or any issues within the basement, if you see any moisture in the basement before you do the work, making sure you catalog that so that when we come back, if there is an issue, we can determine whether or not that was caused by the work performed. And making sure that we keep our customers aware of the restoration process as we venture forth. Much like my previous, the previous presenters, we also have a website where our customers can go in and check whether they have a lead service line or not. And it also lets them know whether they're, you know, what the restoration process is and where they are in the process,
Alex,
and when they can expect the work. Yeah.
Quick question. We're looking at slide 3. What slide are we supposed to be looking at? Have you been advancing them?
I have. Oh my goodness.
Okay, it might be that your shared screen is on your kind of backstage view and not on the presenter view. But in any case, okay, that's helpful. Yeah. So we're looking at your what I'll call your backstage view. We can see now PwC lessons learned. Now I see a different.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am so sorry. I am just a mess.
No worries. It's not a real Zoom meeting until someone's PowerPoint goes awry.
And we'll be sending
Good.
the presentations to everyone, Alex, so no worries.
Well, my apologies. So this was just an example of the ordinance, some of the ordinances that we were talking about, and where you can find them. Sorry, on the on our website. And these were just examples of some of the good pre and post inspection photos, so that this actually happens to be a site where we did have an issue, a restoration issue afterwards. So we were able to go back to the pictures and see whether the whether the complaint was legitimate or not. But it does help to make sure that we have a good understanding of the work that's been done. And this is just a backdrop of our website, which is very similar to some of the other ones you've looked at. And it just lets you look up your service line and where you are in the process and whether, restorations are moving forward. A lot of the lessons learned had to do, again, with communications, which I think a lot of my predecessors really covered in depth. We worked very closely with CDM Smith on these, needing to make sure that they were translated into different languages, and just trying to communicate with our customers as much as possible by using social media, public service announcements with our mayors, and getting out there into community meetings and trying to make sure that we communicate with our customers. I'm not sure if we're in time for the code now or not. I think I've kind of lost track of where
Alex,
I'm.
Yeah, that's fine. We're going to drop the code now, and then I'll give you a 5-minute warning. 11:40. What was it? 11:45. So we're going to drop. This is the third code,
Thanks.
guys. So make sure you write this down. Okay, and then we'll just give a couple of minutes here. Alex, if you want to keep going, because I know we took some time, you can just keep going. I'm going to move the polls quizzes over to the side here.
Thanks. And again, I'm so sorry, guys.
Okay.
So lessons learned, wall penetrations. We've got different types of foundations, and the pre-inspection is very important when you're trying to figure out how much work you're going to have to do and how much restoration work you're going to have to do. And also even something as simple as, do we have retaining walls we need to get through? And this picture of this house right here is an example of a recent replacement where, they're up on a hill, the service line is kind of to the side, and just trying to make sure of the least disruptive way of getting into the basement and being able to replace the line, and understanding the amount of work that's being done, as well as the amount of restoration work that's going to be needed. Understanding that you need to seal the foundation exterior from the interior. You need to ensure that you maintain your cure times for your cement and your sealants. And if there's a lot of rain expected, you might want to consider the work that you're doing and making sure that the rain doesn't come in and flood the basement. We did have a few issues where that did happen, where the sealant wasn't properly applied and rainwater was allowed to penetrate the foundation. Making sure you core drill all of your penetrations so that you have a clean opening to the outside. So most of the work that we've done has been trenchless. Sorry, with a few exceptions. Again, just make sure you're filling your annular space, make sure your specifications include information for that, and make sure that that's something that your inspector is signing off on and looking for when he's doing the inspection. Restoration. I think the biggest complaint that we always get has to do with restoration. it's important to have active communication with your customers regarding the expectations. Having temporary restoration for public safety when needed. And you need to allow your settlement time prior to doing your final sidewalks, your asphalts, or your seeding. Having some contracting flexibility, allowance items to allow for interior restoration. There have been times when we've had to go in and disrupt a finished basement where we've had to do a little bit more extensive restoration work on the inside. Make sure that when a customer calls complaining about the restoration, that we're truthful in our expectations with regards to timing and just keeping our contractors, making sure that they're keeping up with their schedules. Now, this was the biggest surprise for me, was the electrical grounding and stray current issue. Last year, we had to temporarily stall our replacement program because a fire occurred at one of the homes that we were doing work with. The electrical service at the home was older, and there were a lot of unexpected connections within the home. And what ended up happening was they turned off the electric service for them to be able to do the work because they were having grounding issues, and there were a lot of lights flickering and issues with the appliances. Once they turned the service back on, there was an electric surge, and the surge protectors and the electrical cabinet, they didn't work as expected, and a fire ensued. So we ended up having to do some investigations and making sure that we did everything that we could to make sure that this wouldn't happen again. A lot of our older homes have electrical services that are grounded to the lead service water, to our lead service line. And you have stray currents that can also electrify the service line. Need to ensure that your crews are wearing proper PPE, and also making sure that you maintain ground at all times. One of the biggest lessons learned is make sure that your specifications have specific language to maintaining ground as you do the work, and also making sure that you have provisions within your contract so that you can have an electrician on site if needed. We ended up having to add an electrician to be able to inspect some of the homes. If an electric service is deemed to be unsafe, or that it doesn't make sense for us to do the work, we won't do the work within the home unless they update their electric service or make it safe for our contractors, and just ensuring that we're not causing any further issues. Making sure, again, don't touch the private electrical service, don't turn it off. Your contractor shouldn't be turning off the electric service. That's something the property owner needs to do in order to ensure that we're not taking on that responsibility. Installing your temporary ground, and again, the electrician, you might need a oversight. Okay, water meter replacements. There have been times when we've had to replace a water meter. Sorry. Because there's an issue with the meter, or something may have, it was disturbed, and the functionality was impacted. Sometimes the meter is older. Make sure that you have provisions within your contract to replace water meters if necessary. And you can either plan to replace them with in-house crews, or you can use the contractor as needed. But again, having that flexibility within your contract so that you can replace a water meter if needed is key. And here we go. And then a lot of the miscellaneous issues that we've run into, traffic control and parking. As previously mentioned, traffic control is definitely a part of your cost. I think we're probably running close to 2 million by the time we're done with all of our traffic control for the project, ensuring that and even parking issues, having to put out the no parking signs when you're doing the work, making sure that any parked cars. We've had issues where cars have been parked over some of the working areas that we need to be in, making sure that access to the driveways is, if it's impacted, that the homeowner is aware that we do the work when we say we're going to do the work, because we do have people taking off from work to be able to be home, and making sure that you're maintaining your sorry, that you've been maintaining markouts, that your markouts are being called out as you're going through the work, and that you're maintaining a decent schedule of having a decent amount of backlog work that you can do as you need to do, and making sure that your permits are filed in time so that you can continue doing the work and keep the rhythm, the work rhythm going that you've had, so that you can stay ahead of the work.
Excuse me, Alex. Just give me the 5-minute mark. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. So again, working with your consultant and working with your contractor and making sure that everybody is on the same page, and that we're scheduling the work in a manner that makes the most sense. The other thing that we found that I meant to mention when we were talking about customer service was, we've found that customers are a lot more likely to answer the phone if the caller ID says Passaic Valley instead of a random contractor phone number or a consultant's phone number. So we've actually made arrangements to have the contractor be able to make calls and schedule stuff from a Passaic Valley phone, so that they can, so that the customer can understand that it is an official call, and we are one of their trusted, one of their trusted providers, so that they know that the call's real. Making sure that you notify your customers and that they understand that the work that only certain individuals are going to be accessing their homes. We have, our contractor, we have our consultant, and we have Passaic Valley folks, understanding that we have had issues where people have impersonated the water company or have impersonated our contractor, and they've tried to gain access to homes. So making sure our customers understand, what to look for, so that they know that they can trust somebody entering their home. With that, I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Alex. We are asking folks to put the questions in the Q&A, section. And I do have one question for you real quick. So you went from 50% principal forgiveness to 77% principal forgiveness. Is that like a secret you can share for all of us who are going to be getting iBank loans at 50%? How'd you do that?
We were really lucky. We worked, my executive director, Jim Muller, has been in constant contact with the DEP. And I think one of the biggest lessons we've learned is, be as transparent as you can with your regulators. I think they're willing to work with us. And them understanding, we do work with disadvantaged communities within some of our service area, and that certainly helped. But I think that the DEP has been very receptive to just being open and honest about what it is that you're looking to do. And in our case, a lot of it does have to do with water equity and making sure that everybody has access to safe drinking water. Particularly because of the, just the locations of our finished drinking water reservoirs and the way our system's laid out. A lot of our more disadvantaged population is the one that's been the most affected by the lead and water quality issues. So I think it's just really important to maintain an open communication with everybody on that.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us up to our break. We have a 5-minute break. So come back at 11:55, and it's going to segue nicely into what Alex just explained, because we have the NJDEP speaking about funding and financing. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. Welcome back. Can we get the old raise your hand, show of hands of who's back so we know what percentage of everybody's back? Okay. Like, yeah, raise your hand. Jackie, what is your reading of the room?
Let's see, we have 49 now. If anyone's looking for the hand signal again, it's at the bottom of your toolbar. If you could just raise your hand so that we know that you're back.
Right. Yeah.
go.
Oh, good. I see there's some key DEP folks who have not yet raised their hands, but I'm seeing more DEP hands go up, which is good. Ooh, good. So we got Karen Cole.
Looks like
Good. Good. Charles Jenkins. Good. I think Samantha Thomas. Samantha Thomas from DEP. I don't see her hand up, but I see Michael Curley. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 out of 6 on DEP. What is our next presentation? Oh, yay.
Yeah,
So
it looks like
Noemi,
the
this
hand
is
went up.
Karen. I just want to let you know we added Samantha Thomas and Mike, pardon me, Dave Helfrich, just in case they were able to join for Q&A.
Oh, all right.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so all right, super.
I think we're good to go.
How many of our student body are here?
Actually, the hands are going down, so I think we should just get started.
All right, so let's get started then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with no further ado, this is the New Jersey DEP. They are the experts and gatekeepers on lead service line replacement funding and financing, and you are going to learn a lot from them.
Yep. Thank you, Noemi. Let me try to share my screen. Let's see. All right. Does everybody see the title page? I'm hoping.
Yes.
All right, great. Well, first off, thanks for inviting us to this webinar. It came at a good time. We just released our intended use plans for state fiscal year 26 last week. We're going to have our public hearing next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. So all the financing packages, the affordability criteria, and all our funding policies are open for public comment. So either through written comments or through the public hearing, we look forward to hearing all your comments. Let's go to the next. All right, here's our agenda for today. It's pretty ambitious right before lunch, but hopefully you'll enjoy hearing about the free money. I'm going to discuss how Water Bank finances projects, the funding we've provided so far to lead service line replacement projects, and some of the funding packages that we're currently offering. I'll also discuss Water Bank technical assistance for disadvantaged communities and some of the additional financing or financial benefits that are open to disadvantaged communities that enter our technical assistance program. Karen Cole, who leads our Bureau of Environmental and Engineering Reviews, will discuss the Water Bank application process. And Mike Curley, our engineering section chief, will discuss new inspection documentation requirements that will help ensure that once the construction of the lead service line replacement project is complete, that all parties have a clear understanding of the pre and post construction service line materials and work performed at each project address. Then finally, Alaina Ungarini from our Division of Water Supply and Geoscience will discuss some frequently asked questions that have to do with lead service line replacements. Hopefully, most of you have heard about the New Jersey Water Bank. The Water Bank is a partnership between New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. And our mission is to provide low-cost financing for the planning, design, and construction of water projects. We do this through the state's clean water and drinking water state revolving funds, which were established by the Federal Clean Water Act and Safe Drinking Water Act. The revolving funds are capitalized with federal grants and state match funds that are leveraged with iBank municipal bond proceeds. And these funds are used to make low interest loans and principal forgiveness loans to disadvantaged communities and high priority projects. The 2021 bipartisan infrastructure law is expected to provide an additional $1 billion in funding to New Jersey's SRFs over the 5-year appropriation period of that law, which runs from 2023 to 2027. The New Jersey legislature also appropriated over $300 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to the SRFs. Since its inception in 1987, the Water Bank has awarded over $8.9 billion in low-interest long-term loans to 1,700 projects, helping to create over 169,000 direct construction jobs and $3.3 billion in savings to ratepayers. The average borrower saves $500,000 in interest expenses for every $1 million borrowed. We're currently overseeing 277 active construction projects with over $2 billion in short-term loans. Some of the benefits of a water bank loan include repayment terms of up to 30 years, a rolling application and rolling award basis, and that's based on readiness to proceed. We finance planning and design costs for the project, and we offer low-interest construction bridge loans for up to 5 years with no repayments during that construction period. Focus on our drinking water program. Some eligible drinking water borrowers include privately owned and publicly owned community water systems and nonprofit non-community water systems. We cannot provide funding to state or federally owned water facilities. The main objective of the drinking water funding is to protect public health in conformance with the objectives of the Safe Drinking Water Act. Some eligible drinking water projects include water treatment, storage, and transmission facilities. We began large-scale funding of lead service line replacement projects back in around 2020, when lead action level exceedances were discovered in several large water systems. Since then, the Water Bank has provided $338 million in funding for lead service line replacement projects, with most of that funding coming from our base drinking water SRF program, and over $100 million that was transferred from the clean water SRF to the drinking water SRF under the Water Infrastructure Transfer Act, also known as the Booker Bill. That law allowed a special one-time transfer between the funds to address lead service lines. The bipartisan infrastructure law will provide approximately $500 million for lead service line replacement funding over the 5-year appropriation. 49% of this funding, or about $245 million, will be awarded as principal forgiveness loans. To date, $67 million of BIL funds have been obligated to 8 projects, including $25 million in principal forgiveness. These projects will receive an additional $54 million in iBank AAA market rate funding when they convert to long-term loans. One surprise we received in our state fiscal year 25 bill lead service line grant was that, and this condition will apply to our SFY 26 and SFY 27 grants as well. The new condition relates to galvanized service lines and states the recipient, which is us, agrees to ensure that funds dispersed from this capitalization grant for the replacement of galvanized lines will only fund replacement of galvanized service lines that are currently or ever were downstream of known lead service lines or components. So this means any funding coming from our SFY 25, 26, and 27 grants, which are expected to total $372 million, cannot be used for galvanized replacements that are not downstream of current or historic lead components. In New Jersey's case, we draw our bill capitalization grants when the projects are completed and the short-term loans are converted to long-term loans. So when that happens, we will use our SFY 23 and SFY 24 lead grants, which total about $128 million, to pay for any costs related to galvanized service line replacements that were not downstream of lead lines or components. Last year, the DEP launched the spending dashboard on our Water Infrastructure Investment Plan webpage. This dashboard provides information on how we are deploying funds to projects. It's meant to give the public transparency on how we're using our BIL and ARPA funds, and includes descriptions, funding amounts, and source of funds for each project we fund. The dashboard is updated monthly with new loan closings and an estimate of additional funding we expect to award by the end of the fiscal year. Information can be sorted by clean water or drinking water and state fiscal year. The screenshot on this slide shows the 9 lead service line replacement projects totaling $96 million that we funded in state fiscal year 24 and so far in state fiscal year 25. The bottom of the slide shows the amount of BIL loan and principal forgiveness funding awarded in state fiscal year 25 to date in blue, and the additional amounts we expect to award by the end of the year in green. With that year half over, you probably would expect us to award a little more than half of the funding that we expect, but usually most of our loans close in the last quarter of the fiscal year. The Clean Water and Safe Drinking Water Acts require states to develop affordability criteria to identify applicants that would have difficulty financing projects without additional subsidy. Applicants in New Jersey meet our affordability criteria and are designated as disadvantaged communities if they meet either of 2 conditions. The first is a project affordability score of 86.19 or less. The project affordability score is equal to the median household income of the project service area divided by the state's median household income times 100. Then 1 point is deducted if the unemployment rate in the service area is higher than the unemployment rate in the state, and an additional point is deducted if the population growth in the service area is less than the population growth of the state. The second way to qualify is if the project service area meets the New Jersey environmental justice economic overburden community criteria, and that requires that at least 35% of the households qualify as low income. The slides that we're showing today show the updated state fiscal year 26 affordability criteria thresholds. The department is updating the underlying data used for the affordability criteria scores using 2022 census data, current state fiscal year 25, and updated state fiscal year 26 affordability scores are posted on our website. As part of the update, we are adjusting the disadvantaged community threshold to the lowest 25% of all municipalities, moving the affordability criteria threshold from 80, where it currently is, to 86.19. This slightly increases the number of eligible municipalities from 130 to 141. The Water Bank has also created a tiered system for affordability scores to more equitably distribute assistance to the most disadvantaged communities in New Jersey. The tiered structure ensures that communities facing the highest economic challenges receive the most financial assistance. So the Tier AC1 financing packages will go to communities with affordability scores of 69.11 or less. The tier represents the most economically challenged borrowers based on the lowest 10% of municipal AC scores and comprises approximately 47 water systems. The support for Tier AC1 surpasses that of Tier AC2, offering better financing packages and more principal forgiveness funding. The Tier AC2 financing packages will go to communities with affordability scores from 69.12 to 86.19 and sponsors that meet the economic overburden community criteria. This tier includes 97 water systems that face economic challenges but are relatively better off than the Tier AC1. In order to minimize any disruption resulting from this update, the Water Bank will allow project sponsors to grandfather their current AC scores and AC tiers for existing applications under certain conditions. The project applications must have a project report submitted by the end of state fiscal year 25 to have their scores grandfathered. Also, sponsors participating in our technical assistance program by the end of state fiscal year 25 will have their previous AC scores and tiers grandfathered for any projects related to the technical assistance scope of work. This slide shows the current funding packages that we're offering for lead service line replacement projects. The most disadvantaged Tier AC1 communities will receive 80% principal forgiveness for the first $20 million of project costs. Tier AC2 communities receive 50% principal forgiveness for the first $20 million of project costs. And communities that don't meet the affordability criteria threshold will receive 80% interest-free loan and a 20% AAA market rate loan for all project costs. We also have general funding packages available to any disadvantaged community or any non-disadvantaged small water system serving less than 10,000 people that can be used to fund lead service line replacement projects. The general affordability package offers 100% principal forgiveness for the first $2 million of costs for Tier AC2 communities and the first $4 million of costs for Tier AC1 communities for any drinking water eligible project. So if a disadvantaged community is implementing a small lead service line replacement project, we would move them into the more attractive financing package. Small systems that are not disadvantaged communities are eligible for nano financing. These systems qualify for 50% principal forgiveness for the first $2 million of project costs. The Water Bank has expanded its technical assistance program to ensure the historic level of funding reaches disadvantaged and overburdened communities. The expanded technical assistance programs give early engineering and engagement assistance to communities that meet the New Jersey affordability criteria. This assistance will help these communities understand the funding that's available, particularly principal forgiveness funds, and refine their water infrastructure needs, facilitate communications within their community, and navigate the New Jersey Water Bank application process. An online technical assistance request form is currently available on our Water Infrastructure Investment Plan webpage. And available technical assistance for drinking water includes project management, water bank application assistance and program navigation, procurement of planning and design engineers, public outreach and participation, small drinking water system engineering, asset management planning, financial analysis, technical, managerial, and financial capacity evaluation, prioritization and selection of projects, optimization analysis, and capital investment planning. Sponsors meeting our affordability criteria are eligible to participate in water bank technical assistance programs, even if they are receiving technical assistance from EPA, environmental finance centers, or other partnering organizations. The water bank will offer disadvantaged communities participating in technical assistance up to $2 million in grants for planning and design activities. And we will set aside $2 million in principal forgiveness funds for an eventual capital improvement project that results from the technical assistance efforts. Water Bank has set aside $60 million in funds for clean water and drinking water planning and design grants. The planning and design efforts funded by the grants must be associated with the scope of work in the technical assistance provided and be subject of an eligible Water Bank State Revolving Fund project application. The Water Bank has also set aside an additional $60 million in funds for guaranteed principal forgiveness for SRF capital improvement projects sponsored by applicants participating in the technical assistance program. This will ensure that funding will be available for those disadvantaged communities project once the planning and design process is complete. At the time the construction contract is awarded, the disadvantaged community will receive up to $2 million in principal forgiveness or the best available funding applicable to the project in accordance with that year's intended use plan. Now I'm going to pass the presentation over to Karen Cole to go over Water Bank application process. Karen?
Thanks, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Cole. I'm the Bureau Chief of Environmental and Engineering Reviews as part of the State Revolving Fund process. Our group oversees the planning and design review for these projects coming in for financing. So with Paul's presentation, I'm just going to give you a high-level overview how to access these funds through our online H2 loans program. So for lead service line replacement projects and all projects applying for state revolving funds, an application is required for upload into the H2 loans online application and project management portal. Our review and project sponsor submittals are fully documented in the portal. This has a great benefit because we can all collaborate on these projects using one main project dashboard. We can access information and we can also give a snapshot of the project review status. So in step 1, to create a project, the project sponsor directly contacts the New Jersey Water Bank. They will provide a PIN number and create a project account. They're also very helpful with any questions regarding the navigation of H2 loans. In step 2, the project sponsor completes the project information data fields in H2 loans that will be then used to rank the project. At this point in the process, we encourage the applicant to initiate a pre-planning meeting so that the project team and DEP reps can assemble and provide comprehensive guidance to inform the submittals then for step 3 and step 4. Step 3 requires the submission of the letter of intent and the project report. You may be familiar with the term planning report, which is now called the project report, and it includes preliminary engineering information, environmental and cultural resource impacts, and a project resilience assessment. Step 4 requires the submission of plans and specifications. All required permits and approvals are also required at this point for upload. And step 5 requires the development of a socially and economically disadvantaged business utilization plan. So the completion of all these items culminates in an authorization to advertise that allows the project sponsor to advertise for and open bids. Paul? Thank you. So this slide is just giving you an overview of step 3. Some of you who have come through the program may be more familiar with the planning report, which really focused on environmental and cultural resource reviews. We've expanded that. So now it is the project report. It has 3 main components. Preliminary engineering requirements, environmental planning, and cultural resource requirements. One of the things that we really focused on with lead service line replacement projects is public outreach. We just want to make sure everyone is aware of the process, how it will affect them, what's needed for access to their property, and just so they can understand a general timeline. So the environmental review is the first major project milestone, and it includes, as I mentioned, a cultural resource component. So it culminates in the issuance of the environmental decision document in which we inform the public of the project and its impacts. So for lead service line replacement projects, we've streamlined the environmental and cultural resource reviews with the understanding that the process takes place in existing paved roadways, sidewalks or front yards, and in soils that have been disturbed by installation of existing utilities. Next slide. Step 4 is the development of project design and submittal of complete loan application. This requires the submission of all contract documents, engineering agreements, and permits and approvals. And after this portion of my presentation, Mike Curley will be presenting the engineering agreement requirements for lead service line projects. So during this phase of the project, we ensure that the project planning scope, which you identified in step 3, is consistent with design. It also ensures compliance with federal, state, and local laws, such as prevailing wage and local public contracts law. And it also requires the inclusion of resilience design considerations. Next slide. Thanks, Paul. So again, this was a very high-level overview. We do have the New Jersey Water Bank Applicants Guide. This provides a roadmap of all of those steps I just identified that you can access here on our website. the links are in the bottom there. We understand that the process is involved. Many of you who have been through it understand that, and it takes a couple iterations of going through the program to fully understand the steps and what's needed to comply. We're all here to assist you. Again, we recommend you set up a pre-planning meeting. We are all part of that collaboration. I always say when you apply to the New Jersey Water Bank, it's a relationship based upon the project sponsor, the client, the municipalities, the technical staff, and DEP. So we look forward to your collaboration. If you have any other further questions, we can all be reached. Hopefully you've all received a contact information. So now I'm going to pass the presentation over to Mike Curley. Mike is currently a section chief in our bureau who is overseeing engineering design reviews. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Karen. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for your attention. As Karen mentioned, I'm the section chief for the engineering and design review of the Bureau of Environmental and Engineering Reviews. And part of the review process during the SRF application process is that the applicant or the consultant submit an engineering agreement, and that's for construction management of the project, once the project goes into construction. So as a result of some of our issues that were identified on previously funded lead service line replacement projects, we've updated the engineering agreement, some of the scope of work that now should be included in engineering agreements, which includes that a full-time inspection of each service line replacement is required, and a site inspection report is required for each service line replaced, whether it's full replacement, including utility side and homeowner side, or just the homeowner side or utility side. And some of the new requirements for the site inspections reports, which I'll getting into. These inspection reports must be submitted monthly to the NJDEP during the life of the project. And also, once the contractor is working and submitting, monthly payment requests, the application should include a table that contains a line item summary of all the work that's being performed and being billed for that pay period. And that table must include all addresses that were worked on in that interim period. Next slide. So the updated requirements and this is for funded projects, for the new inspection report fields. This is just some of them because these report fields will be included on the Water Infrastructure Investment Plan website. And some of the fields that will be required for these inspection reports will be pre-replacement images, post-replacement images, the date that the work was performed, the type of the replacement that was performed. The report should include site coordinates, GIS coordinates, the site address. It should list the contractor that performed the replacement. And then it should include the material that was found at the curb, meter, or main, and what material was replaced for that replacement. And also the resident project engineer should be included on that report. And like I said, there'll be this is just a doesn't include all the fields that are required. Like I said, those will be included on the Water Infrastructure Investment Plan website. Next slide, please. And there's also updated requirements for site inspection pictures, so that photographs of each replacement must include the pre-construction condition of the work site, the excavated curb stop to document the materials and condition of the existing utility side and customer side service lines. And it should be clear documentation of the completed service should be included. And again, the photograph must include geographic coordinates. And photographs have to conform to the NJDEP established standards, including the picture on the left, which when the picture is taken, it should include a whiteboard or poster board, which would list the address of the replacement, the date of the replacement, the contract number, and also, where if it's a curbside replacement or main side replacement, and what is the, should be, in this case, it's a copper placement. And with these pictures, the minimum of 2 feet of line should be visible in the picture. And that's after each connection or valve for both the homeowner side and utility side replacements. Next slide, please. And then this is just like a diagram of the site inspection pictures that we would require, which shows, the main replacement where we would expect to see the picture, the curb side, and then also, the meter and in the home. That those pictures should also be included. Next slide, please. And then during the construction phase, we've updated the requirements for inspections. Currently, the construction section of the Bureau of Construction Payments and Administration requires a minimum of once per quarter inspection. And these inspections are usually scheduled with the consultant and the project sponsor. And any deficiencies that are noted during the inspection are documented in a post-visit letter submitted to the project sponsor and the consultant. And the proposed updated inspection requirements will require additional inspections, which will be on a 1 to 3 week cycle. And these additional inspections will be unannounced. And again, these inspections will be recorded in a GIS survey. And the deficiencies for the additional inspections are noted in a post-visit correspondence. And part of that inspection, would be an on-site inspection and also a review of project documentation. So they will be reviewing the loanee submitted inspection reports to ensure that the proper inspection procedures are being followed. And also a review of the submitted contractors' invoices and spreadsheets to ensure that the address-specific information for each lead service line replacement has been submitted, and it should be submitted in Excel format so it can be easily searchable. Next slide. That's all I had. Like I said, this updated information will be included on the Water Infrastructure Investment Plan website.
Okay, everybody. Thank you, Paul. We have the 4th verification code. So be sure to write that down. And also just respond to the poll, select one of the responses so that we know that you received the code. We'll just give a couple minutes here. Okay, I'm just gonna leave the poll up over to the side for a minute, we can continue on.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Alaina Ungarini. I work in the loan program and on lead service line implementation. So we just wanted to put together some FAQs that we get just to help answer some questions we get pretty frequently. So the first one is, if a water system does not own any of the service lines in the service area, what is the system's responsibility for replacement? So this is a question we get a lot that we would hope to have cleared up by this point, but the law puts the responsibility. So we're working with the lead service line replacement law that was passed forth through the legislature in New Jersey. And regardless of the way the law is written, regardless of who owns the service line, whether it's the customer who owns the whole thing or just a portion, or the customer owns nothing at all, the water system is responsible for ensuring that all of these service lines are replaced and must create a plan to do so. So even if the water system has no ownership of the service line whatsoever, the system still has to set up a program to replace these service lines. So that would mean, getting together all of the information about the inventory in the service area, figuring out how many service lines have to be replaced, and then hiring a contractor on behalf of the customers, and offering that to them. Of course, they can replace the service line themselves, but the water system does have to offer to do the work for them. The water system does not have to pay for the portion of the service line that they do not own. That's written into the law as well. Water systems, depending on the ownership, whether it's public or private, have the option of either raising the rates of everyone in the service area to pay for the service line replacements, or assessing the customer or the cost directly to the customer. So those are the options. So bottom line, the water system is responsible for ensuring all of the service lines are replaced, but they do not have to pay for the portion that they do not own. The next question we get pretty frequently is, how far must the service line be replaced into the home, and where does premise plumbing start? So the way the law is written, it states that all lead service line portions up to the building inlet must be removed, but they don't specify what the building inlet is. So we interpret that to be at least 3 feet into the building inlet, and if the service line extends beyond that, we say that the service line must be replaced past the meter and up to the shutoff valve, which is usually in people's basements. And that's to ensure that the full lead service line portion is removed. Typically, we think that anything after the shutoff valve is considered to be premise plumbing, and that is the responsibility of the homeowner and would not fall under this law here. And so the last question we've been getting a lot recently is, some of you may have heard that EPA, I think back in May, has placed some restrictions on funding galvanized service lines replacements through bipartisan infrastructure law funds. And people are wondering if the state revolving fund will still be able to fund their galvanized service line projects. And what EPA has instructed us is that all states using federal fiscal year 2024 and future bipartisan infrastructure law funds in the lead service line replacement pot of money are only to be used for lead service lines or galvanized service lines that were previously or currently downstream of lead. And that has to be proven. However, these restrictions were not placed on federal fiscal year 2023, 2022, and prior to that. We do have remaining funds from those federal fiscal year allocations that can be used for galvanized service line replacements without any restrictions. And we do have other packages as well, should funds through those pots of money not be available. And if any water system has any specific question about funding availability for their project or a potential project, you can reach out to us and we can schedule a meeting to discuss further. Next slide, please. And I believe that was it. So we can take some questions. There's our contact information right there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and I will pass it back to Noemi.
Hello, everyone. Let me move my screen here. Okay, now I can see better. I have a couple of questions for the DEP, and we'll open it up to the floor. Our system has a lot of lead line galvanized, so I assume that that would be okay to fund, but one can't really tell lead lined galvanized from galvanized until one cuts into the pipe. Now there is a new technology using X-ray properties that that is coming out that allows one to point a sensor at a pipe and then determine does it have lead or not based on the response that that the sensor receives. What would we does a system that have a lot of lead line galvanized need to demonstrate that in any way? Alaina, you're on mute.
Sorry, it just notified me I'm muted. Feel free, anybody else, to jump in, but the answer would be yes. A water system needs to demonstrate that in order for us to be able to use those funds, because EPA has put restrictions on that. I do think we've brought up to them that we have, specifically in Trenton, a lot of instances of lead-lined galvanized service lines. And I believe that they said those would be acceptable to be, used for those funds, but it needs to be proven that those lines were lead-lined galvanized. So that might be something we need to discuss more specifically, like internally, with you about how to prove that. But yes, those would be eligible.
Okay. And then let's see. Galvanized lines that were downstream of any lead infrastructure. Does that would include goosenecks, right? And my understanding was that in Trenton Water Works back in the day when galvanized lines were popular to put in, they always added a lead gooseneck because of its flexibility. I don't know how well documented that is. Would that count as a galvanized line requiring replacement?
I'd have to look back at what they said about goosenecks. I'm not sure goosenecks are eligible. I would think because it's a lead component, yes. But I'll have to check back on that if they made the distinction between those and lead service lines. But the key part there would be that you would have to have documentation or some proof that there was a lead component existing there before.
Okay. What for the letters that go out to all, which was part of a previous presentation, I think it was Kristin's. Kristin mentioned that the DEP may be changing the letter requirements to consolidate it to August, because I know the current you have lead letters go out in July, you have unknown letters go out in November. Can you all comment on that and comment on ways that a water company can structure a letter so they just send out one letter with kind of if-then statements? Because the letter will almost always include the specific components like lead and unknown, copper and unknown, lead and copper.
Yes, I have not heard of any plans to consolidate them into one going out in August. Not to say that that's not a possibility, but I'm not aware of any discussions that have happened for that. And additionally, right now, so we're working off of New Jersey's lead service line replacement law and EPA's lead and copper rule. Those are two separate things, and they have two separate letters. So I believe that these letters will still be required. You won't be able to send out one blanket letter to everybody saying maybe you have an unknown, maybe you have a whatever. It has to be specific to the address saying you have a lead or galvanized service line or you have an unknown line. They will be two separate letters. And I believe that is intended to remain the same. So I don't really think there will be that many changes. I'm hoping that we can align them. The reason that they were sent out at different times is, again, because New Jersey's state law requires all of these things to be sent out in the summertime based on when the law was signed into effect. And EPA is the one who requires the unknown letters to be sent out, and that effective date was later in the year. So that's kind of why they didn't line up.
Okay.
Yes, I think we're hoping to put some more information out with New Jersey lead and copper rule. We're hoping that goes through and can put some information out about that, but hopefully that will align the timelines a little bit better.
Okay. Does anybody
Noemi, I can
Oh,
comment
yes.
about that.
Yes,
Across
please
the
do.
country, the rest of the states had to do the 3 styles of letters. It will continue to be 3 separate letters, one for lead, one for GRR, which doesn't apply in New Jersey, it's just galvanized, and then one for unknown. And the way you decide which letter to send is you look at your worst case of the 2 sides. Just like your overall service line classification, if you have lead and unknown as your 2 sides, you would send them the lead letter. If you have unknown, that's the unknown letter.
All
Or
right.
unknown copper, that's an
Okay.
unknown letter.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone in the audience have questions? And you can raise your hands. And Jacqueline, would you call on people? Because I can't see the audience's hands.
Okay, yeah, sure. I think first up we have Mike Arshenko from Newton. So I'm gonna allow him to talk now. Mike. Oops. Mike, are you there with a question? Okay. All right, we're gonna come back to Mike. I'm gonna move on to Thomas. Thomas, if you have a question, get ready. And okay, Thomas, you have permission to ask your question now. So if you could just unmute yourself. And Mike has no question. Thomas, are you there with a question?
No, you're on mute, Thomas. Just in case.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? You can raise your hand. In the meantime, we do have a question from Dominic that I don't believe it has been answered. I think Kristin's answering it in the chat, but it says, are lead goosenecks considered unknown and are letters required for that or just the service line?
Lead goosenecks are considered lead service lines in New Jersey, so you would have to send out a letter to them saying that you have a known lead gooseneck. And sorry, I forgot the second half of the question and it went away.
Oh, let me see here.
Or just the service line. Okay, yeah, so it would be goosenecks in New Jersey, yes.
Great. Anybody else have any questions?
I have kind of a really in the weeds question for Alex Wells from Passaic Valley regarding the sealants that you used. If you had any recommendations on that.
Yeah, we had some specific grouts that were specified, and also foam products that we could put around the opening. I'd be happy to share them with the specifications with everybody, and I'm happy to send those to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, there were some Sika products, and there were some other, I can't remember the specific name and number, but happy to share the specification with you.
Yeah.
If you can get that taken care of, you'll take care of a lot of your complaints.
Yeah, that's why I asked. Yeah. Yeah, anyone else in the audience?
Any more questions? You could just put your hands up. The raise hand button is at the bottom of your screen. Oh wait, we have a question here in the Q&A. From Nathan Kirikoff. He says, regarding the electrical grounding issue, is there a way to check if the line is charged before touching it?
We did design put together a testing procedure, which again I'd be happy to share with all of the participants. It includes an ammeter, and they're checking voltage, and just again making sure that they're maintaining ground between the lines as they're doing the work. So I'm happy to send share the procedure with our participants.
Thank you.
Alex, if you could just tag that on to the end of your deck, a few more slides with that info, and then when you send it over, they could have.
Absolutely, yeah. And
Awesome.
Anybody who has any questions, they're free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to share what we have.
Okay, and we have a question from Robert Smith. Robert, I just gave you permission. You just have to unmute your mic.
I was just wondering if they were going to have these presentations posted. That's all.
Yes, we'll send out the slide deck, and then we're recording right now, so we'll have the video available. Just once the New Jersey Water Association is done with the accreditation, since the videos have the codes, we'll probably release that after everyone's done with that. But the slide decks you'll be able to get. So you'll have the video and the slides. That way, the presenters can also adjust for any information that came up that could be answered. They can adjust their slides to put that information there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Please raise your hand.
Do any of the panelists have questions for each other?
Are we still here? I know we're still. I don't. I can't wait to look at the slides again. That was a lot of great information from everybody.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Well, I guess if there are no other questions or comments to advance our understanding of lead service line replacement programs and lead compliance, Deandrah, is there anything we need to say before we sign off?
Just before I turn it over back to New Jersey Water Association, just want to reiterate that at Jersey Water Works Collaborative, we have a working group of lead heads, and we pull them in from time to time and kind of curate these presentations. But we're also looking to find out what kinds of presentations will be helpful and from what system types and program types you want to hear from. So this 2025, we're looking to do some office hours where that's not presentation based, just so you can come and ask questions. So if you want to hear about a voluntary program or free and mandatory and you want a panel on that, just so you can throw your questions, we're looking to do stuff like that where it's not presentation based, but more of a discussion. And then we're also looking to do a few focus groups. We're going to try to plan one for small systems this year. So we also do a few resource guides. We do one pagers, we do booklets, we do reports. And so we recently did one for mayors because we heard that mayors were a key part of just understanding what's happening with the replacement program. So we did that. But if there is a specific kind of audience that New Jersey Water Systems needs support in reaching, we're looking to kind of do those types of workshops. So presenting to mayors, municipal officials. So we are looking to host those two things this year just to hear what you all need so that we can bring that to the forefront. So put my email in the chat. You all can reach out to me to get in contact with any of the presenters as well. And looking forward to seeing you all again sometime this year. I'll turn it over to Jackie.
Okay, thank you, Deandrah, and thank you for including us in this webinar. So for your credits, everyone, you should have 4 verification codes. After this webinar is over, I will send out the document for you where you'll fill out your information to receive credit. On the document, you'll put your 4 codes and sign off, and you can just send it back to me. I should have them all processed by Friday. If I have any questions, I'll reach out to you by then. So, and likewise, I just ask that you try and return those back in as soon as possible, and definitely by Friday. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.